Chapter 1049. In Hua Xiu's ears, these words were a provocation. She turned her head to look in the direction of the voice, only to see a few gorgeously dressed ladies standing not far from them, whispering to each other with handkerchiefs in their hands. The lady in the lead was looking straight at her with an unfriendly gaze. Hua Xiu was puzzled. She had just arrived, who had she offended? Was it the hatred of killing her father or stealing her husband? There was actually someone who had such obvious enmity towards her. Chu Qingyan knew that she was not one to suffer losses. If someone respected her, she would respect them 10 times over. But if someone dared to offend her, she would haggle over the smallest details. It was very obvious that Hua Xiu was already preparing to make a move. Although she wanted to stop her from making a big fuss here, she did not want her good friend to be ridiculed for no reason. Thinking that there would probably be more storms inside, Chu Qingyan might as well let her make a fuss. At worst, she would come out and clean up the mess later. Hua Xiu suddenly said, "Who is that person?" Chu Qingyan had just returned not long ago, so she did not know her. She recalled that she had asked Jasper to investigate the ladies and madams in the capital, so that she could be of use in the future. She turned her head to ask Jasper. Jasper walked out and replied, "The daughter of the political governor, Xiang Zhen. Her name is Xiang Yue." The political governor, the right chief minister's assistant. Hua Xiu pondered for a moment, then smiled at her good friend beside her. I can afford to offend her. Anyway, even if she could not afford to offend her, there was still Miser. At worst, there was still Qingyan's huge backing. At this moment, their group had already walked to the entrance of the courtyard and met with those ladies. Although Su embroidery is widely worn by the upper-class aristocrats, this is the first time I've seen such unfashionable Su embroidery. When passing by a few people, Hua Xiu's line of sight casually swept over Xiang Yue, then she casually said as she brushed past her. Among the people present, other than Xiang Yue, no one wore Su embroidery, so there was no need to think to know who she was talking about. Xiang Yue flew into a rage out of humiliation. What are you talking about? I asked someone to buy this high-quality Suzhou embroidery from Jiangnan. It's hard to get. What does a bumpkin like you know? As soon as she finished speaking, the girl beside her also began to chime in, that's right. Why are you talking to a layman about this? It's a waste of time. Chu Qingyan looked at this domineering and arrogant confrontation. Although she wanted to help, she restrained herself because she saw that official Lin was not worried at all. Instead, he was looking into his sleeve with interest, as if he had a card up his sleeve. In business, she had been scolded by many people. To Hua Xiu, this was just a small trick. She didn't care at all. There are records that the embroidery of the Song dynasty was done with fine needlework. 1 or 2 threads were used, and the needles were as fine as hair. Embroidery has the characteristics of flat, neat, fine, dense, harmonious, bright, smooth, and even. Among these, density means that the lines are arranged in a compact manner without showing any flaws. Look at your clothes, do you have such an effect? Although these people were disgusted by this girl who came out of nowhere, when they heard her professional comments, they couldn't help but lower their heads to look at Xiang Yue's clothes. Indeed, although the lines were fine, it was still not up to the standard of Su embroidery. Xiang Yue also saw it. She saw that the attitude of the people around her had changed. She was anxious. Do you think we will believe whatever you say? We are not that stupid. Just because my family is the largest Su embroidery shop in Jiangxian, how about it? Hua Xiu smiled at her very kindly. Chu Qingyan nodded in her heart. Hua Xiu's family business was spread across various industries. In terms of food and clothing, she was an expert. To her, it was a piece of cake for her to give professional comments. Previously, Xiang Yue had been showing off that she had bought this beautiful and expensive set of clothes. Although the sisters around her praised her verbally, they didn't feel good in their hearts and didn't like her actions. Now that she had been exposed and it was just a defective product, they couldn't help but gloat. It was just that they couldn't show it on their faces. Xiang Yue couldn't hold her face anymore. She really didn't know what Su embroidery looked like. This was also her first time wearing it. However, she was humiliated in public, and it was in front of the man she liked. She stopped arguing with Hua Xiaoli and turned to complain to Lin Fengyi, who was watching the show from the side. Lord Lin, please take a look. Such a vulgar and tactless businesswoman doesn't deserve to stand beside you. Scholars, farmers, businessmen, and businessmen. Scholars were the most glorious, while businessmen were the most lowly. Therefore, after hearing Hua Xiao's words, Xiang Yue found a point to attack. However, she didn't choose to say it to Hua Xiao. Instead, she said it to Lin Fengyi. In her opinion, this was a chance for Lin Fengyi to ignore Hua Xiao and notice her. Long ago, her father had mentioned that there was a talented official in Jiangnan who was appreciated by His Majesty. Moreover, he was still unmarried. If she could marry him, her future would be bright. Therefore, she paid more attention to him. Once, she was lucky enough to meet him and fell in love at first sight. However, he had once hinted that he had a fiancé in Jiangnan, which made many officials retreat. Now that she saw the two of them coming down from the same carriage, she was sure that this person was the fiancé he mentioned. She felt that she wouldn't lose to this woman. She felt indignant and blurted it out. However, this woman wasn't a pushover, so she didn't go against her. When Hua Xiao heard this, she realized that the culprit who was implicated was the person beside her. She crossed her arms and looked coldly at Lin Fengyi. She wanted to see how this guy was going to clean up the battlefield. If he didn't do what she wanted, she would teach him a lesson. When everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Fengyi, they realized that he didn't even look at Xiang Yue. Instead, he said to Hua Xiao, "It's our turn. Don't delay the time because of unimportant people and matters." Chu Qingyan, who was at the side, suppressed her laughter. She really wanted to give official Lin a thumbs up. This move was brilliant. After entering the garden, the smile on Hua Xiao's face changed. She lifted her foot and stomped heavily on Lin Fengyi's foot. "I'm not done with you." As she spoke, she strode forward, completely ignoring him. Lin Fengyi's eyes twitched. It was really embarrassing to be watched by his good friend in public. However, chasing after his wife was more important. He immediately followed behind. This wasn't Jiangnan. He didn't dare to let her run around. It was unknown what official Lin said, but Hua Xiao said, "Go home and prepare to kneel on needlework." Looking at the two figures, Chu Qingyan snickered. She tugged on the sleeve of the person beside her. "Big ice block, you were right. You're really good at fighting. I don't have anything to worry about." Xiao Su smiled. With such a valiant Hua Xiao, he didn't have to worry about anyone coming back to bully his little fellow. This was also the reason why he allowed Hua Xiao to participate in the poetry gathering. If he wasn't by her side, his little fellow wouldn't have to fight alone. "Eldest brother, Qingyan, wait for me." A familiar voice sounded from behind. Chapter 1050. Chu Qingyan turned around and saw Xiao Ran bent over with his hands on his knees, panting. She was a little surprised. "Didn't you take a carriage? Why do you look like you ran all the way here?" Xiao Ran took deep breaths. After he calmed down, he slowly walked towards the two. "I went to the Wang Fu to look for you, but the guard told me that you had already left, so I rushed over here without stopping to rest." When Xiao Ran saw Chu Qingyan dressed in silver and red, he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If Mu Fei hadn't called him over and said a lot of things before he left, he wouldn't have been delayed in picking up Qingyan. Chu Qingyan didn't know what he was thinking. She smiled and said, "It's fine. We were just about to go in. Let's go together." The beauty's smile was like a flower, making him forget the unhappiness on the way here. He immediately followed beside her and nodded happily. "Eldest brother, third imperial brother went to welcome the envoy 2 days ago. I don't know if his body can withstand the bumpy journey." Xiao Ran sighed as he walked. Xiao Su said faintly, the path you chose, no matter how bumpy it is, you have to bear it yourself. Others can't interfere. Hearing his eldest brother say this, Xiao Ran was a little anxious. He immediately shook his head and explained, "Third imperial brother went because of me. I owe him." When he said this, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan looked at each other and read the surprise in each other's eyes. Although there were only a few princes in the imperial family, they had never heard of Xiao Ho and Xiao Ran being so close. "Why did he go because of you?" Chu Qingyan asked in confusion. Xiao Ran cursed inwardly. If he said it, wouldn't he be exposed? He rubbed his nose and said with an uncertain expression, "This is a secret between me and him. Don't ask." Although this topic was over, Xiao Su still paid attention to it in his heart. The few of them passed through the flowery corridor that was overflowing with the fragrance of flowers. The shade of the trees reduced the heat of the summer by a bit until they entered a few tall pavilions. The cold air hit them in the face. Chu Qingyan sighed in her heart. As expected of the princess, she was so generous that the entire courtyard was filled with ice cubes to cool down. Chu Qingyan's mind was focused on admiring the beautiful scenery in front of her. She didn't notice that the moment they entered, they had attracted the attention of most of the people present. Not long after they appeared, many people came to greet them. Most of them were young soldiers who had fought with them on the front line. Among them were Jean Xian and a few others. "General, Princess, you're here." Then, he glanced behind them and scratched his head. Huling and Turan didn't come. "Their identities are special, so they won't appear on certain occasions," Xiao Su replied. "That's right, they aren't the same as us." Fang Lu finally realized and nodded. On the other hand, Chu Qingyan looked at Jean Xian, who was standing beside her. Her gaze was fixed on Xining, who was standing beside her. Her usually calm face revealed a rare look of surprise. Xining was too embarrassed to look at him. She twisted her fingers and rubbed the back of her hand. Chu Qingyan snickered inside. This pair of immature lovers. "Jean Xian, if you have time, come to the Wang Fu for a walk. Don't be so busy. You've become much darker and thinner recently." Chu Qingyan's tone carried slight reproach and concern. At the same time, she created a bridge between the two to create a chance for them to meet. Jean Xian looked at Xining and immediately responded. At this time, Fang Lu asked, "Lord, several of our brothers have also come. Do you want to go over and see?" Hearing this, Xiao Su turned to look at the little fellow. There were all men over there. If she went over, he was afraid it would be inconvenient for her. "It's fine, go do your work," Chu Qingyan said very reasonably. At this time, Xiao Ran volunteered, "Eldest brother, don't worry and go. I'll be here for Qingyan. I can introduce some new friends to her." Xiao Su thought that the main purpose of coming out this time was for her to meet people. So, he said a few words to him and then handed the little fellow to him. He left with Fang Lu and Jean Xian. When Jean Xian left, Xining finally dared to look at him. At this time, a hand suddenly appeared in front of her. Xining stilled. Looking at the newcomer, she couldn't help but say angrily, "Young Master Hua, what are you doing? Bringing you back to your senses." Hua Xiu popped out of nowhere and looked at her with a smile. Then, she suddenly leaned close to her ear, "Oh right, when I was wandering around just now, I found many women looking at your family's Jean Xian. You have to keep an eye on him. Don't let him be eaten by the wolves, tigers, and leopards here." Xining blushed, but she was stupid and couldn't win against her. She could only ask her master for help. Chu Qingyan watched the two's conversation from the side. Seeing this, she didn't help. Instead, she stood on Hua Xiu's side and said, "Xining, this is the reason why I brought you in. Don't let our good intentions down." Xining wanted to cry but had no tears. Even her master was bullying her. Woo-woo. At this time, Xiaoran noticed Hua Xiu and asked curiously, "This is?" Only then did Chu Qingyan remember that she forgot to introduce the two. "Xiaoran, the current fourth prince. This is my good friend, Hua Xiu. In front of unfamiliar people, Hua Xiu restrained her temper and politely greeted Xiao Ran. Since it's still early, I'll take you for a walk. I often come to Aunt Huayu's courtyard, so I'm very familiar with it. In order to leave a good impression in Chu Qingyan's heart, Xiao Ran took the initiative to take care of the girls. Okay. Hua Xiu agreed. There was a beautiful scenery here and a handsome man accompanying her. If she didn't appreciate it, it would be a waste of the sleep she sacrificed when she woke up before dawn. Because the main character had yet to appear, the people who came gathered in twos and threes, chatting and laughing. However, it could be felt that their topic revolved around Chu Qingyan. Just now, when Chu Qingyan came in, she was protected by the two brothers, Xiao Su and Xiao Ran. One was the current emperor's favorite prince, and the other was the recently rising and outstanding aristocrat, Lord. Just this treatment alone was enough to show that Chu Qingyan was different. Moreover, the conflicts between women came very suddenly and without reason. Sometimes it was because of the same clothes, and sometimes it was because one's appearance was better than the other's. Therefore, Chu Qingyan, who was the most eye-catching in both appearance and status, was envied by all the women present. Mingzhu, isn't that His Highness the Fourth Prince? Why is he with that stinky girl from the Chu family? Yes. Isn't she the King of England's fiancée? But it seems that she is very close to His Highness. Since Xiao Ran came in, Jing Mingzhu's eyes followed him, but he couldn't see anyone else except for Chu Qingyan. She was already uncomfortable in her heart, and when she heard her sisters say this, she felt even more uncomfortable. She was obviously the one who liked him, so how could he be so close to Chu Qingyan? She had never seen His Highness the Fourth Prince show such an expression to her. The more she thought about it, the angrier she felt. Let's go and meet her. Jing Mingzhu flung the handkerchief in her hand and walked up with her head held high. When the women beside her saw that there was a good show to watch, they also excitedly followed. Chapter 1051. Chu Qingyan and the others were strolling around the garden under Xiao Ran's lead. Suddenly, a group of women with unkind expressions walked towards them. Chu Qingyan felt the other party's gaze on her and couldn't help but look up. She saw that the woman in the lead looked a bit familiar. Thinking back, wasn't she the woman who played chess with her at the palace banquet that night? She was called something like Mingzhu. Hua Xiuli thought that these people were here for her because she had received a lot of eye rolls for no reason today. She couldn't help but walk forward, but after taking a few steps, she was stopped by the people beside her. They're here for me. Chu Qingyan whispered. Hua Xiuli stopped in her tracks and then stood next to her, imperceptibly increasing her aura. Xiao Ran also saw these people, but he didn't feel the strange atmosphere. He was planning to take Qingyan to the other side. Today's poetry gathering was an excuse, but it was to cultivate their relationship. He had to confirm whether Qingyan had feelings for him before he could propose to cancel the engagement. However, these people blocked their path. Your Highness Fourth Prince, Miss Chu. Jing Mingzhu and the woman beside her saluted them. Xiao Ran wasn't in the mood to exchange pleasantries with them. He smiled slightly. Miss Jing and the other ladies are too polite. You're also here to participate in the poetry gathering, so do your best. Then this prince will disturb your fun. After saying that, Xiao Ran took Chu Qingyan to another path, but unexpectedly, the path was blocked by these people. Xiao Ran frowned slightly. Jing Mingzhu didn't feel this way just now. Now that she found that Xiao Ran didn't even look at her, how could she report to her father and mother when she returned? Moreover, her self-esteem had suffered a heavy blow. Your Highness, Miss Chu and I hit it off at the palace banquet. Although I lost to her in chess, I'm sincerely convinced. Right now, I want to compare notes on poetry with her. Is it convenient? Jing Mingzhu believed that her literary talent was second to none in the capital. This was also the reason why she dared to come out and compete with Chu Qingyan. If Xiao Ran could see his brilliance, maybe he would keep his eyes on him and take the opportunity to humiliate Chu Qingyan. When Chu Qingyan heard this, the corner of her mouth twitched. Why did these girls from the capital like to use competitions to show off their talents? Couldn't they just sit down and have a good chat? She regretted coming to this poetry gathering. Miss Jing, in terms of poetry, Qing Yan is not talented, so I won't embarrass myself, she replied calmly. It can't be. Ming Zhu had already humbly asked for guidance. How could you say that? Is it because you can't compare? Or do you think we're not worthy of being your opponent? One of the girls said with a sharp tongue, as if Chu Qingyan was looking down on them. With this raised tone, it attracted quite a few people's attention. They looked at Chu Qingyan's group with strange gazes, as if they were blaming and complaining. Hua Xiu gave a cold snort, don't you understand human language? Qing Yan had made it very clear that she felt that this young Mistress Jing was more capable than her, so she rejected her. Why did it sound like she was looking down on you all? Hey, this is not the right way to slander someone. If you want to bully someone, then do it openly. Don't try to put up a front. With Hua Xiu's personality, it was impossible for her to let others bully her friends. The girls in the capital were used to being reserved. Even if they didn't get along well, they were polite on the surface. They had never seen a girl who hit the nail on the head and was so fierce. Jing Mingzhu and the others felt as if they had been slapped in the face in public. However, due to etiquette, they didn't know how to refute and could only stand there with their faces flushed red. When Xiao Ran saw this, he understood their tricks and was unhappy. They actually dared to slander Qing Yan in front of him. It was simply too infuriating. Miss Jing, since Qing Yan has already said that she doesn't want to exchange pointers, don't force her. We still have to go somewhere else. Excuse us. Xiao Ran's tone was stiff and not polite at all. This made the girls' faces turn pale. They knew that he was angry and didn't dare to provoke him. They immediately retreated a few steps and made way. Xiao Ran turned to Chu Qingyan and smiled, let's go. Aunt Huiyu has planted a lot of strange flowers and herbs. I'll take you to see them. As he said this, the group of people left in front of Jing Mingzhu and the others. Having lost so much face in front of His Highness the Fourth Prince, Jing Mingzhu's face was ugly and angry. The Chu family is just a declining family and has never been glorious. Why is Chu Qingyan favored by so many people? Not to mention the retired emperor and His Majesty, even the King of England and His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince are very interested in her. It's really strange. One of the girls muttered. Do you still need to say it? Look at her bewitching appearance. As long as she waved her hand, countless men would fight to be the first to get close to her. I say, before the other girl finished speaking, Jing Mingzhu glared at her and she kept quiet. Jing Mingzhu faced the girls and said with a gloomy expression, His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince is such an outstanding person. It can't be like what you say. It must be Chu Qingyan who is fawning over him. His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince saw that she is his future sister-in-law and couldn't refuse. Don't talk nonsense in the future. The girls looked at each other. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince took the initiative to get close to her. Didn't he see that Chu Qingyan treated him very normally? However, Jing Mingzhu's father was the Minister of Rights. They couldn't offend her and could only agree. After Jing Mingzhu and the others left, a master and a servant appeared. Because the tall locust tree had blocked their figures, no one had discovered them. Yao Ruoying looked in the direction Chu Qingyan and the others left and narrowed her eyes. Chu Qingyan, why can you become the consort of the King of England and receive preferential treatment from the Fourth Prince? A malicious look flashed across her face. She suddenly thought of a plan and slowly curled her lips. Since so many men revolve around you, then I'll let you have a taste of what it means to suffer the consequences of your own actions and lose your reputation. If His Royal Highness knew that you were so fickle, he might even divorce you. The more she thought about it, the happier Yao Ruoying became. Let's go to a crowded place to walk around. She recovered her gentle appearance and walked in the opposite direction with the servant girl. Chu Qingyan, just you wait. After the poetry competition, you will know how powerful I am. At this time, they had already walked far away. Chu Qingyan looked at the person beside her with a light smile. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. It seems that I don't need to make a move in the future. Those people who provoke me will be scared away by you. Hua Xiu scoffed, this great ant has traveled far and wide for so many years. The roads that this great ant has walked are more than the salt that they have eaten. At this level, they still dare to talk nonsense in front of me. They must be tired of living. Lady Hua is really a heroine. You have the straightforwardness of a woman in the Jianghu. I admire you. Xiao Ran couldn't help but praise her. Chu Qingyan laughed at the side, don't praise her. Who knows, her tail will start wagging. Hua Xiu stuck out her tongue at her. Just as they were about to say something, they saw the crowd rushing in one direction. Chapter 1052. Chu Qingyan saw a group of people escorting a gorgeously dressed woman from a distance. She thought that Princess Huiyu had arrived, which meant that the Lotus Poetry Festival was about to begin. So, they followed the crowd and slowly walked over. Qingyan, your seats are here. I'll be over there. If there's anything, you can look for me. Because men and women had different seats, they sat separately. Xiao Ran led them to their seats and whispered to them. Chu Qingyan nodded and told him not to worry. Then, she walked to the women's seats with Huali and the others. Xiao Ran looked at the direction Chu Qingyan left in a daze. After a while, he withdrew his gaze and walked to the other side. Xiao Ran and Chu Qingyan were the focus of the crowd. Xiao Ran's action fell into the eyes of many people. Even Princess Huiyu couldn't help but pay attention to it. Who's the woman who came with Ranner? Why does she look so unfamiliar? Princess Huiyu asked casually after sitting down at the head seat. As soon as she said this, many people around her scrambled to answer. That's Qingyan of the Chu family, who caused a sensation at the palace banquet. She's also His Royal Highness' fiancée. A young woman from an official's family replied with a smile. So it's her. She's quite beautiful. Princess Huiyu's tone was light. Others couldn't tell whether she was praising Chu Qingyan or not, so they didn't say anything. At this time, Chu Qingyan and Huali had already arrived at the women's seats. However, they didn't know most of the people there, so it was a bit difficult for them to choose their seats. Suddenly, someone called out to them. Miss Chu, there's a seat here. Chu Qingyan heard the voice and looked over. It was a woman with a pretty face and a shy smile, but she was unfamiliar to her. However, she looked familiar. Chu Qingyan smiled at her and nodded. Then, she led a group of people over. It was said that Princess Huiyu had never set seats based on seniority. Most of the seats were chosen by the participants themselves. The seats were all small tables, and each table was only big enough for 4 people. Each person occupied one side of the table. Chu Qingyan's table was already occupied by 2 people, and with her and Xiuli, it was just enough to fill the table. After she sat down, Chu Qingyan thanked the person who invited her. Many thanks. The shy woman hurriedly said, You're welcome. We're also short of 2 people. You came at the right time. Because Chu Qingyan happened to be face to face with her, she took in all of her expressions. She looked like a gentle woman, so she couldn't help but smile kindly at her. Miss Chu, you're really beautiful. Looking at you up close, I've never seen a woman more beautiful than you. At this time, the girl next to the woman restrained her temper and waited for them to finish their greetings before immediately interrupting. After speaking, the shy woman next to her gently pulled her sleeve. Only then did she realize that she was a little rude, so she hurriedly introduced herself. Sorry, I'm Yu Tianyue. You can call me Tianyu. This is my good friend, Qi Lingyi. Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiuli looked at each other. They felt that this little girl was quite cute. Chu Qingyan nodded and smiled. Nice to meet you. I'm Chu Qingyan, and she's Hua Xiuli. We're about the same age, so you can call us by our names. Sister Qing Yan, Sister Xiaoli, Yu Tianyue and Qi Lingyi both nodded. Hua Xiaoli couldn't help but look at her good friend next to her. In fact, Chu Qingyan should be the youngest of the four, but she was called the elder sister. How funny. Chu Qingyan shrugged to express her helplessness. Who asked you to have such a strong aura? Hua Xiaoli winked and sat down. Sister Qingyan, I heard that you've been in Lian City for a few years. Can you tell us what it's like there? What's the difference between it and the capital? Yu Tianyue saw that Chu Qingyan didn't put on any airs and was very easy to talk to. She immediately opened her mouth and asked non-stop. Chu Qingyan thought that the two girls in front of her were curious babies who didn't know much about the world. She thought that it was quite boring right now, so she could chat with these two girls to pass the time and learn about the current situation in the capital. Although it was Yu Tianyue who was asking long-winded questions, Qi Lingyi, who was sitting quietly at the side, listened very seriously to Chu Qingyan's explanation. This was about His Royal Highness's past. The legends she had heard about him before were somewhat untrue. Now that she learned about it from the people close to him, it was as if she was participating in his life. Listening to these people and things related to him, she felt that her heart was full of joy. But in the end, Hua Xiaoli joined the conversation. She was experienced and knowledgeable, and the things she was involved in were things that women in the boudoir didn't know. Soon, she attracted everyone's attention. Taking this opportunity, Chu Qingyan left and sat at the side. She listened to Hua Xiaoli talk about the capital's matters while observing the surroundings. People who practiced martial arts had sharper senses than ordinary people. Just now, she had already noticed that many people were looking at her, both openly and secretly. Some were kind, some were malicious. In short, it made her feel very uncomfortable. She felt a very sharp gaze fall on her. She quickly caught sight of the other party and found that it was the organizer of the poetry meet, Princess Huiyu. Princess Huiyu met her gaze and was surprised. Then, the sharpness in her eyes disappeared, leaving only a faint smile. She even nodded at her, as if it was just an illusion. What's wrong? Hua Xiaoli took the time to ask her friend. The two maidservants opposite her were immersed in the interesting things she made up. Nothing. You guys are chatting quite happily. Chu Qingyan withdrew her gaze and said to her. Hua Xiaoli smiled and shook her head. She whispered, they haven't been out of the capital. They are amazed by the colorful world outside. Their horizons are too narrow. It's better for them to go out. Chu Qingyan smiled and looked at the two girls in front of her. She was quite touched. Noble girls like Qi Lingyi were taught the 4 books and 5 classics since they were young, and women should abstain from needlework. After they finished their studies, they would be married to a family of equal social status under the order of their parents. Then, they would abide by the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, and would be a good wife to their husbands and children until they died of old age. Although this kind of life was stable, it was like a marionette without independent thought. If they were lucky enough to marry into a good husband's family, then they would be happy for the rest of their lives. However, men were allowed to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. It was a blessing to have many children, so most men did this. Women looked harmonious and beautiful on the surface, but in fact, they were secretly sad and had nowhere to vent. However, in her eyes, it was unfortunate. But to others, it might not be. Because their thoughts were not the same. I heard that His Royal Highness is also coming to participate in the poetry gathering today. Why haven't I seen him yet? Yu Tianyue asked curiously. Qi Lingyi heard this name and her heart trembled. She couldn't help but look at Chu Qingyan, waiting for her answer. Chu Qingyan looked around. Indeed, she didn't see anyone. She casually said, he was still here just now. Maybe he was hiding in a corner to discuss something with his colleagues. Chu Qingyan's casual and teasing words sounded intimate. This made Qi Lingyi feel envious. At this time, a servant girl stood up and sang. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit for a moment. The poetry gathering is about to begin. Chapter 1053. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted by the singing. At this time, Princess Huayu, who was sitting on the high seat, raised her hand. As a princess, her prestige was released, and the scene suddenly quieted down. Today, this imperial concubine is very happy to be able to invite the capital's young talents, young masters, and beautiful ladies to participate in this imperial concubine's poetry gathering. Normally, everyone doesn't have much entertainment, so this imperial concubine decided to invite everyone here to recite poems, play the zither, and paint together. As long as this time is not wasted, it will be fine. Princess Huayu made the opening speech, and everyone expressed their approval and praise. Hearing everyone say that she was kind, considerate, and talented, Princess Huayu was proud in her heart, but she still had a kind and gentle smile on her face. Well, since the theme of today's party is lotus appreciation, how can we miss such an important role? Come, draw the curtain. Princess Huayu waved her hand, and 3 or 4 guards walked to the towering curtain at the side. They pulled the long string in their hands, and the curtain fell down. A cool summer wind blew, faintly carrying the fragrance of lotus, and then everyone saw the beautiful scenery covered by the curtain. There was no end in sight to the lotus flowers, pink and white, waiting to bloom. They were like shy young girls in full bloom, standing gracefully on the surface of the pond. The lotus leaves were bunched together, spreading out in layers into the distance. Egrets were flying low in the air, creating a refreshing and elegant scene. Princess Huayu smiled and said, I sent people to plant these last year. It took a year, and they finally bloomed today. I can't wait to invite everyone to enjoy it together. Princess, you're so considerate. We're very honored to enjoy it together with you. Everyone exclaimed one after another, which greatly satisfied Princess Huayu's vanity. Are all the people in the capital so hypocritical? I feel that they're even better at talking nonsense than us businessmen. Hua Xiu twitched the corner of her mouth. She couldn't stand the flattery. Chu Qingyan curved her lips and said, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Just keep it in your heart and don't show it, so as not to scare people. She turned her head and saw the 2 girls at the same table looking at her with wide eyes. She couldn't help but touch her head. Forget it, it's better to talk less. Now, everyone can walk around and admire the lotus flowers. There is a chessboard and a guqin in the nearby pavilion. Feel free to play with them. However, since this queen has organized this event, there must be a reason for it. How about this? Within the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, everyone can compose a poem or a painting using the lotus flowers. This queen will pick out the best poem and painting and reward them handsomely. What do you think? Princess Huayu's words were echoed by the crowd. Princess Huayu nodded with satisfaction. Then, she ordered the servants to bring her writing brush, ink, and paper. Hua Xiu saw the extra brush, ink, paper, and inkstone on the table. The corner of his eyes twitched. I can calculate the accounts, but forget about reciting poems. Qing Yan, you can make 2 copies later. Just write my name on one of them. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and smiled. Benefits? How about I treat you to the most famous place in the capital to eat delicious food? Hua Xiu probed. Who do you think can make better food than the people in my residence? Chu Qingyan shook her head. Hua Xiu felt that it made sense. Then what do you want? I haven't thought about it yet, so I'll owe you for now. Chu Qingyan nodded and replied. Hua Xiu nodded without hesitation. Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue felt as if they were looking at flying immortals from outer space when the 2 people in front of them talked about cheating without any hesitation. They obviously felt that it was inappropriate, but the 2 of them said it so naturally that they couldn't refute or dissuade them. At this time, a figure appeared at the edge of the rockery not far away. His eyes swept across the scene and locked onto the person he was looking for. He avoided everyone's gaze and slowly walked over. Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw the person coming. Before the person arrived, a smile already appeared on his face. Qi Lingyi was seriously thinking about it when she suddenly felt that Chu Qingyan's expression had changed. Although she was still smiling, her smile was even brighter than before. Furthermore, Chu Qingyan's gaze went past her and looked behind her. Qi Lingyi could not help but turn around to look. She saw a tall black figure appear in front of her eyes. His movements were elegant and his temperament was noble. He wore a mask on his face and only a pair of deep eyes could be seen. It made people lose their minds when they saw him. I have to go to the military camp for something. Can you do it alone? Xiao Su only had eyes for his little fellow. He directly walked to her side and used the tall potted plants to hide his figure as he asked in a low voice. If you have something to do, then go ahead. I still have Hua Xiu here, so don't worry. Chu Qingyan very considerately shook her head. Xiao Su nodded and turned to leave smoothly. He came and left in a hurry without taking away a piece of cloud. However, Qi Lingyi was stunned and her mind was in a mess. Chu Qingyan didn't notice that something was wrong with Qi Lingyi. After watching the big ice block leave, her eyes fell on the lotus flowers not far away. She listened to her friend who came back from a walk by the river to pass the time. The lotus flowers in Jiangnan are so beautiful. The ones here are so malnourished that they bloom too small. At this time, Xiaoran also ran over with his poem in his hand. He wanted Chu Qingyan to help comment on it. After being attacked by Xiaoran and Hua Xiu in the courtyard, Jing Mingzhu was resentful. At this time, seeing that Xiaoran and Chu Qingyan were so close, the resentment in her heart deepened. She looked at the painting under her pen and suddenly had an idea in her mind. A trace of complacency flashed through her eyes. She took the painting that she had just finished and walked to Princess Huiyu. She smiled sweetly and said, "Aunt, what do you think of my painting?" Jing Mingzhu's father married the sister of Commandery Prince Li, who was also Princess Huiyu's sister-in-law. Therefore, Jing Mingzhu was Princess Huiyu's niece. Jing Mingzhu was very popular with Princess Huiyu. At this time, she asked someone to take the painting. She looked at it carefully and nodded. "Mingzhu, your painting skills have improved a lot." Jing Mingzhu said modestly, "It's not as good as Aunt's painting skills. I want to give it to Aunt, but I feel that something is missing." Princess Huiyu smiled and said, "You are so considerate. Look carefully. It would be better if you could add a poem or two in this blank space." Jing Mingzhu approached Princess Huiyu and said coquettishly, "Aunt, you have a good eye. But Mingzhu wants to make another painting to participate in the competition. I can't think of any beautiful poem in my mind. Can I ask someone to add a poem or two?" "You little girl, are you trying to present a gift to Buddha with borrowed flowers?" Princess Huiyu was amused. "Tell me, who do you want to add a poem?" She knew that this little girl wanted to scheme against someone, but she chose to side with her relatives instead of reason. "Mingzhu lost to Miss Chu in chess, so I want to take this opportunity to ask her for advice on her poem." Jing Mingzhu blinked. Princess Huiyu couldn't help but think of the dazzling woman just now. Her smile faded a little. "Aunt allows it." Chapter 1054. Everyone had already left the banquet to admire the flowers and prepare to write poems and paint. Chu Qingyan's two little girls had also walked to the side of the pool not far away, leaving only her and Hua Xiu. At this moment, a person who looked like a eunuch suddenly walked to a few tables and asked in a loud voice, "Is Miss Chu here? The princess wants you to come forward and answer." This loud shout attracted the attention of the people nearby, and they all looked in the direction of Chu Qingyan with different expressions. The eunuch followed the line of sight of the crowd and quickly found her. He walked to her table and bowed politely, "Miss Chu, the princess wants to see you." She had already heard the loud shout just now, but she was a little unhappy. This person knew where she was sitting, and he was clearly trying to attract people's attention. She smiled and nodded without revealing anything, "Thank you, eunuch." When she stood up, Hua Xiu pulled her sleeve and whispered, "I'll go with you." Chu Qingyan looked up and saw that most people were approaching the main stage. After weighing the pros and cons in her heart, she nodded. Xiaoran smiled and said, "Don't worry, my aunt is very nice. I'll go with you and see why she wants to see you." Chu Qingyan's lips twitched, and her smile was very faint. As she walked, she deliberately slowed down her pace and analyzed the situation. She and Princess Huiyu had never met before, so it could be said that they didn't know each other. When Big Ice Cube came to participate in the poetry competition, he didn't mention this person much. It could be seen that he didn't have a deep friendship with this princess. So, it seemed that Princess Huiyu either heard about her and wanted to see her, or she heard someone's words and wanted to make things difficult for her. However, after observing the princess's speech and behavior, she was more inclined to the latter, and became vigilant in her heart. Those who wanted to watch the show didn't mind it, and the crowd gathered around them. Some were watching the show, some were gloating, and some were gossiping. There were all kinds of people with different expressions. Chu Qingyan followed the eunuch and walked to Princess Huiyu. She bowed respectfully, and no one could find anything wrong with her. When Chu Qingyan walked over, Princess Huiyu had already secretly sized her up. Her appearance was very good, and she was the most outstanding woman she had seen in recent years. "You're Qingyan from the Chu family. I heard Miss Mingzhu talk about you. You're good at dancing and chess. You're really skilled in both literature and martial arts. After so many years, I haven't heard of such an amazing girl," Princess Huiyu said with a fake smile. Chu Qingyan did not feel that there was anything to be happy about. Instead, she felt even more pressured by the gazes of the people around her. "Princess, you praise me too much. Qingyan was only lucky to win against Miss Mingzhu. Qingyan is far inferior to you, you are the one who is truly proficient in both the pen and the sword." The reason why Princess Huiyu had a high status in Sichuan was mainly because she was praised by the Empress Dowager. She was good at riding and shooting, and she was talented in both literature and martial arts. Therefore, the Sichuan emperor also had a whole new level of respect for her. Chu Qingyan took the opportunity to praise her. Princess Huiyu might have heard this kind of praise too many times, but she just smiled and was indifferent. "You haven't been in the capital these years. Are you used to it now that you're back?" Princess Huiyu asked. "Thank you for your concern, Princess. Qingyan is doing well," she answered obediently. "Aunt, don't worry. Qingyan is very adaptable, and your nephew will also help her." Xiaoran couldn't see the undercurrent between them, so he interrupted with a smile. Xiaoran came out to speak for Chu Qingyan, which made Princess Huiyu look at him a few more times. At this time, Jing Mingzhu stepped forward and hugged her aunt. She said coquettishly, "Aunt, didn't you ask Miss Chu to write a poem?" Princess Huiyu seemed to have just remembered. She patted her forehead and said self-deprecatingly, "I'm getting old and my memory is getting worse. I forgot such an important thing." As she spoke, she turned to Chu Qingyan and said, "Qingyan, Mississippi Mingzhu drew a painting. It's very good, but it's a pity that it's missing something. Mississippi Mingzhu said that you're as talented as her, so she wants you to write a poem or two for this painting. What do you think?" It turned out that she was waiting for her here. Writing a poem was a lie. She wanted her to make a fool of herself. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows slightly. Seeing this, Hua Xiuli frowned in dissatisfaction. However, in this kind of situation, she had no status in front of the nobles in the capital. If she stood out, she would only make Qingyan look bad. Therefore, she could only suppress her anger. At this time, the painting had been unfolded in front of everyone. Chu Qingyan couldn't refuse it in time. It would only show that she was petty and didn't have any real talent. Xiaoran looked at the painting seriously. "Sure enough, it's missing something. It's a good idea to write a poem. Qingyan, give it a try. It's okay if you can't write a poem." In the face of Xiaoran's encouragement, Chu Qingyan smiled. Then, she turned to Princess Huiyu and said, "Qingyan, give it a try." "Okay." As the fiancé of the King of England, you must have something extraordinary. Then, I'll give you half a cup of tea's time. If you write a poem well, I'll give you a reward. Princess Huayu said with a faint smile. Half a cup of tea's time. Everyone looked at each other. Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue, who were by the river just now, also rushed over. When they heard the time, they couldn't help but be surprised. Even a talented scholar couldn't think of a poem and write it in such a short time. They couldn't help but worry for Chu Qingyan. When Jing Mingzhu heard this, she felt that her aunt's trick was really clever. She couldn't help but want to see Chu Qingyan make a fool of herself. The smile on Xiao Ran's face stiffened. He couldn't help but say, "Aunt, isn't the time given too short? Miss Chu hasn't spoken yet. What do you have to say? You're looking down on her too much." Princess Huayu chuckled. As soon as these words came out, even if Chu Qingyan had an opinion, she had to swallow it. Chu Qingyan realized that Princess Huayu's words had a hidden dagger. She sighed in her heart. This woman from the palace was really good at talking. She could praise you to the sky at any time, but her purpose was to make you fall even more miserably. Xiao Ran turned to look at Chu Qingyan. Seeing that she didn't show an embarrassed expression, he felt a little relieved and stopped talking. Then let's start now. Princess Huayu waved her hand, and someone came out to start the timer. Chu Qingyan walked out with a decent smile on her face. You don't have to trouble yourself. Qingyan has already thought about it. So fast. Not only Princess Huayu, but everyone present was surprised. However, seeing that Chu Qingyan didn't seem to be joking, everyone restrained their surprise and wanted to see how Chu Qingyan would deal with it. However, Princess Huayu soon smiled. Miss Chu is really smart. Good. Come, prepare the ink, paper, and inkstone. When Hua Xiu heard her good friend's words, she secretly sighed in relief. However, she didn't know that Princess Huayu still had a trick up her sleeve. In this way, regardless of whether Qingyan's poem was good or not, if her handwriting wasn't good, people would have a reason to criticize her. What a cunning old fox! She complained in her heart. Chu Qingyan walked to the table prepared for her. Looking at the painting on the table, she raised her eyes to look at Jing Mingzhu. The corner of her mouth slightly raised, and a trace of ridicule flashed through her eyes. Then, she lowered her head and picked up the brush. Chapter 1055. The look that flashed through Chu Qingyan's eyes was too fast for Jing Mingzhu to catch it. However, she was sure that Chu Qingyan was looking down on her, although the anger in her heart was soon replaced by coldness. Let her be complacent for now. I'll teach her a lesson later. At this time, Chu Qingyan's every move had become the focus of everyone's attention. They saw her holding the brush, dipping it in the ink, pondering for a moment, and then starting to write. Xiao Ran stood beside her and stared at her side profile. Her jade-like neck was like a swan's, and her figure was elegant and serene. His heart unconsciously trembled for her again. He suddenly had a thought that even if he used his whole life to quietly look at her, he still wouldn't have enough time. Thinking of this, Xiao Ran didn't dare to think further under the watchful eyes of everyone. Instead, he looked away and looked at the table. When he saw the words under her pen, Xiao Ran was stunned. Then, a look of admiration appeared in his eyes. It was natural and smooth, and it was done in one go. Chu Qingyan put down the brush, stood up, and bowed to Princess Huayu. From the time she picked up the brush to the time she finished writing, it only took her a few steps. Everyone was surprised by her speed, but they were more curious about what she had written. If she had speed but no quality, she would only be a laughingstock. Princess Huayu took the painting and glanced at it casually. In the end, she fixed her eyes on it. Why don't you ride the wind and soar to 90,000 miles? She recited in a somewhat amazed tone. Everyone present pricked up their ears, so this poem floated into everyone's ears like a breeze. Qi Lingyi and the others' eyes lit up. Even Jing Mingzhu had to admit that this poem was really well written. Feeling everyone's expectant eyes, Princess Huiyu asked the eunuch to unfold the paper and show it to everyone. At first, everyone was just amazed by the poem, but in the end, they even praised her handwriting. This poem is a good one, and the handwriting is also good. I once had the honor of seeing King Ying's handwriting. The strokes are clear, and the strokes are firm and firm. It's both thick and thin. It's neither obedient nor ruthless. It's neither dry nor smooth. It's very admirable. Miss Chu's handwriting seems to have inherited King Ying's legacy. When you raise your brush, you have King Ying's style. For a woman to have such good handwriting, it's really commendable. Among them was a civil official. Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan said modestly, "When I have nothing to do, I often copy your Highness's handwriting, so my handwriting more or less has your Highness's style. But Qingyan doesn't deserve your Highness's praise. I think that among everyone present, Qingyan can only be ranked in the middle." His words, which were neither arrogant nor impatient, immediately received the approval of many people. Xiaoran felt that she was too modest, so he said with a smile, "Qingyan, your handwriting is really good. It's almost better than all the women present. The eldest brother must have taught you how to write. I'm envious. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate." On the side, Hua Xiaoli patted his forehead with a helpless expression. Women's jealousy was extremely strong. Qingyan had worked hard to reduce the resistance of the women present, but he was good. With one sentence, she immediately returned to her original state. Even if you want to praise someone, you shouldn't praise them like this. At this time, Jing Mingzhu stood up, feeling indignant. Although Miss Chu's handwriting is not bad, this poem seems to have nothing to do with today's Lotus Poetry recital. Her words gained the approval of many people, and they all pointed the spearhead at Chu Qingyan. Some rejoiced in her misfortune and wanted to watch a good show. There were also people in the left minister's faction who wanted to see how she would solve this predicament. Chu Qingyan didn't feel embarrassed. She stood up naturally and gracefully. Maybe Qingyan misunderstood. But just now, when the princess asked Qingyan to write the poem, she didn't say that the theme had to be lotus, so Qingyan wrote the poem according to the painting. Jing Mingzhu slightly pursed her lips. Although this answer is a bit far-fetched, I'll let it go for now. However, your poem has nothing to do with my lotus painting. When a painting is inscribed with a poem, it should be compatible with each other. But we can't seem to see that the painting and the poem are compatible. Miss Chu, do you have a better explanation for this problem? Everyone felt that the atmosphere was a bit tense, but they could see that there was something fishy going on. There were rumors that the Jing family wanted their daughter to marry into the imperial palace, and the husband was the fourth prince, Xiaoran. Now, the fourth prince kept circling around Chu Qingyan and didn't care about her at all. How could the arrogant Jing Mingzhu tolerate this? Therefore, she took the opportunity to cause trouble and make Chu Qingyan feel embarrassed. Everyone was well aware of this, so they just stood on the sidelines and watched. They wanted to have something to talk about after dinner. Xiaoran felt that Jing Mingzhu's words were too aggressive. He didn't like it. Qingyan wanted to speak up for her, but Hua Xiaoli stopped him with a smile. Your Highness, Qingyan will deal with it. It's better for you to stand on the sidelines and watch. Hua Xiaoli only dared to say these words to prevent him from being a hindrance. Xiaoran looked at Qingyan's indifferent expression and had no choice but to give up. At this time, Princess Huiyu was standing on the sidelines silently. She wanted to see what Chu Qingyan would say. At this time, Chu Qingyan smiled elegantly at the people present. The beauty was so pleasing to the eyes. Everyone was immediately attracted to her. Following that, Chu Qingyan looked at the painting that had been spread out by the servants. Her voice was gentle as she said, "I can understand young Mistress Jing's doubts. In her eyes, the lotus flower is the most important thing. I also think that her painting is very lifelike and very vivid. However, my focus may be on the red-crowned crane standing in the water. Everyone desires to have wings, to reach heights that they can't reach. My heart was moved, and so I wrote this poem. If there are any parts that are not written well, please forgive me. Her words were neither servile nor overbearing, and every line was reasonable. Everyone was convinced, and there were even some who admired her because of her expression. If she was not broad-minded, she would not be able to write such a heroic poem. On the other hand, Jing Mingzhu seemed to be a little petty. Seeing that the situation was very clear, Princess Huiyu didn't want to embarrass her niece, so she began to smooth things over. She praised Chu Qingyan a few times and rewarded her with some gold, silver and jewelry. Then, she let the people disperse and continue to play. This matter came to an end. Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiuli returned to their seats. I think that these noble ladies and gentlemen usually don't have any fun. They just love to gossip and find trouble for others. If it was me, they deserved to slap their own mouths. Hua Xiuli didn't care about Xiao Ran at all. She rolled her eyes and ridiculed. Different places raise different people. Anyway, you won't be staying in the capital for long. Don't worry about it. Chu Qingyan patted her hand gently. At this time, Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue also gathered around and expressed their concern and admiration. Chu Qingyan responded to them with a smile. At this time, Hua Xiuli asked, Qingyan, what did you mean by that sentence just now? What? Why don't you ride the wind and soar 90,000 miles in the sky? She recalled. It means that you're very capable. Why don't you fly to the sky? Chu Qingyan replied very sincerely and innocently. Pfft, ha, I knew that with your temperament, you wouldn't let that Jing Mingzhu take advantage of you. Ha ha ha, why don't you fly to the sky? Ah ha ha ha, this sentence is really awesome. It's so funny. Hua Xiuli held her belly and laughed. Chapter 1056. With Chu Qingyan's explanation, Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue were both dumbstruck. Xiao Ran, on the other hand, had a look of surprise. He grinned and said, Qingyan, why do you have so many fallacious arguments? But when I hear it, I feel that it's very interesting. I can only say that you did it beautifully, cursing people without using any vulgarities. Chu Qingyan spread her hands, expressing her helplessness. There's no other way. Who told them to provoke me, so I can only fight back? Hua Xiuli gloated as she interjected, actually, if it wasn't for the fact that she didn't want to make too many enemies, Qingyan could be even more ruthless. Some people just think that they're high and mighty and can't see themselves clearly. They don't have the strength to back it up, so they only know how to put on airs and bully others in secret. That's really enough. To be honest, others say that all businessmen are evil, but at least we businessmen will cheat on the surface. I, Hua Xiuli, can be considered an open and above-board person. Chu Qingyan giggled when she heard this. She raised her hand and poked Hua Xiuli's head. Why do you always have a way to turn the topic around to praising yourself? It seems that not only are you open and above-board, you also have a glib tongue. Esteemed Wang Fei, when doing business, you have to rely on your glib tongue to convince the other party and make them listen to you. You should understand this principle better than me. Wasn't I moved by someone's words in the past and now I'm working for you? Hua Xiuli had an innocent expression as she began to complain. These words made Chu Qingyan not know whether to laugh or cry. They all laughed together. Jing Mingzhu looked at their table from afar and smiled. Her heart was filled with grief and indignation. What she wanted to see was Chu Qingyan's cowardice, but what made her disappointed was that not only did this person not lose her composure, she even won everyone's appreciation. This was called trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. However, she had no other choice at this time. She could only watch as Chu Qingyan left victoriously, the resentment in her heart difficult to vent. Mingzhu lass, endure for now so that you can counterattack better in the future. This consort sees that Chu Qingyan is in the limelight too much. Going too far is as bad as not going far enough. There will always be someone who will help you deal with her. Princess Huiyu saw that her niece was in a bad mood. After thinking for a while, she held her hand and comforted her with a smile. Auntie, is what you said true? Jing Mingzhu asked anxiously. Princess Huiyu glared at her and said, when did auntie lie? Princess Huiyu shook her head and said with a smile as she looked at her niece who was behaving like a girl. Then, she thought of something and said in a serious tone, also, you silly girl, why are you looking at Chu Qingyan? She's already the King of England's fiancée, so she won't affect you. What you should be concerned about is the women around the fourth prince. Furthermore, the most important thing for you now is to make the fourth prince pay attention to you. You're really picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons. As she said this, she raised her hand and poked her niece's forehead, feeling as if she expected better from her. Jing Mingzhu finally remembered this matter. At this time, she was embarrassed by her aunt's words. Auntie, what are you talking about? Why can't Mingzhu understand a single word you said? She knew that her niece was quick-witted and would understand. She just needed to make sure that she didn't overdo it. As for Chu Qingyan, she believed that, just like Xiao Su, she wouldn't have a good ending in the capital. As she thought of this, she slowly exhaled the turbid breath she had just breathed out. Time passed, and soon, it was time for the evaluation. Chu Qingyan casually drew a painting and another one in her sleeve. Then, she handed it in. The result was just as she expected. She performed at an average level and didn't attract too much attention. She was relieved. Qingyan, Jijia, I realized that your drawing speed is very fast. Your drawing style is also very unique. Why? Qi Lingyi thought about what words to use to describe it. Chu Qingyan finished her sentence. What you want to say is, why is your drawing so mediocre? Qi Lingyi pursed her lips and nodded. Is the sun big today? Chu Qingyan asked. Qi Lingyi didn't understand why she suddenly asked this question, but she still nodded honestly. It's big. Then, is it dazzling? Chu Qingyan continued to ask. Qi Lingyi nodded again. That's right. No one appreciates a sun that's too dazzling. No one likes people who are too bright. So, don't overdo it, and don't overdo it. Chu Qingyan tilted her head. Her expression was a bit mischievous. She didn't look like she was teaching others a lesson at all. But the twinkling smile in her eyes was so dazzling that people couldn't help but sink into it. Qi Lingyi looked at her smiling face in a daze. She admired her in her heart, but also felt a bit upset. You still have time to chat. Hua Xiu popped out of nowhere and gave them a fright. She giggled. I just heard a few servants say that a lot of good wine has been prepared for this poetry competition. It will be sent up later. I heard that it's this year's spring peach blossom wine. I have to try it. Otherwise, it'll be a waste of my time here. I know you like wine. I definitely won't fight with you over it later. Chu Qingyan said with a smile. Oh right, wasn't Xiao Ran still here just now? Why can't I see him now? Hua Xiu laughed mischievously. I just saw that Miss Jing circling around the fourth prince. I'm afraid she's entangled and can't get away now. I have a rumor. Do you want to hear it? Yu Tianyue came over mysteriously. Say it. Even if we don't listen, you won't be able to hold it in and say it in the end. Hua Xiu raised her eyebrows at her. Yu Tianyue puffed up her cheeks. How could this person hit the nail on the head? But she really couldn't help but keep a secret. She whispered, I heard that Miss Jing might marry His Highness the Fourth Prince. Ah. Hua Xiu's expression was exaggerated. No way. That's too ridiculous. It's all over the circle now. Moreover, Miss Jing didn't defend herself when she heard this rumor. Everyone said that she tacitly agreed. Yu Tianyue saw that they didn't believe her and couldn't help but sound a bit anxious. Chu Qingyan focused and said, I haven't heard Xiao Ran mention it. But it's better not to participate in this kind of discussion if both parties haven't confirmed it. After all, it's related to both parties' reputations. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present expressed their agreement. Hua Xiu chuckled. Little sister Tianue, if you have nothing to do, go admire the flowers and draw some grass. Don't indulge in those rumors. Study hard and improve every day. Tianue knew that the other party was right, but she hesitated and asked, what does improve every day mean? She could understand if she studied hard, but she was a bit confused about improve every day. This was because she thought of the poem that Chu Qingyan had written for Jing Mingzhu. Could it be that she wanted her to ascend to heaven? Wasn't that scolding her? Hua Xiu let out an ah and scratched her head. She asked her friend, what does it mean? She had learned this from Qingyan. It means to work hard and be positive. Chu Qingyan shook her head and smiled. Only then did Tianue relax and accept Hua Xiu's advice. Just as they were talking, the words, here's the wine, attracted everyone's attention. Hua Xiu rubbed her fists and elbowed the person beside her, revealing her small sharp teeth. Last time, your highness stopped you from drinking with me. This time, you won't be able to escape. Chapter 1057. Drink wine. Chu Qingyan's first thought was that it was a good idea, but her conditioned reflex reminded her of Big Ice Cube's daily exhortations. Her heart was beating like a drum. Was this wine suitable for drinking? At this time, Jasper, who was acting as an invisible person, suddenly spoke. Young Master Hua, my master can't drink wine. You should drink it yourself. Before Hua Xiuli could speak, Xining also advised, yes, His Highness doesn't allow my master to drink, especially outside. If she drinks, we will be scolded by His Highness when we go back. Hua Xiuli glanced at her friend, who spread her hands helplessly. She couldn't help but curl her lips. It's not easy for the King of England to be gone, but you don't have the guts. What a disappointment. Chu Qingyan was amused. She stretched out a finger and shook it. Provocation doesn't work on me. Don't waste your time. Hua Xiuli glared at her, feeling that she valued her lover more than her friend, and ignored her in a fit of anger. At this time, the servants in charge of serving wine walked to everyone's table, put down a palm-sized pocket white pot, and set down 4 wine glasses before leaving. Everyone, try this peach blossom wine. The ingredients are all picked from this garden. The best winemaker in the capital helped to brew it. The wine is buried under the peach trees. It was just dug out today and hasn't been opened yet. It's very suitable for drinking and tasting at such a poetic moment. As soon as Princess Huiyu finished speaking, everyone who was eager to try immediately opened the lid. Suddenly, the air was filled with the intoxicating fragrance of peach blossoms. Just smelling it was enough to make people's pores open, and they couldn't wait to drink more. Everyone's face was filled with wine. Only Chu Qingyan's cup was filled with tea by Jasper. Chu Qingyan glanced at Qi Lingyi and Tianue next to her. Even in front of them, there was peach blossom wine with a clear color. She couldn't help but feel depressed. Just now, he had been mentally preparing himself to just drink tea. After all, it was all water and there was no difference in essence. However, when everyone else was the same and only he was unique, he felt that something was wrong. At this time, Tianue picked up the wine and found that Chu Qingyan was staring at her tea in a daze. She couldn't help but ask, Sister Qingyan, why doesn't His Highness allow you to drink? I'm not sure. Chu Qingyan shook her head bitterly. Qi Lingyi thought for a moment and asked, is it because you can't hold your liquor that His Highness doesn't allow you to drink? However, this peach blossom brew isn't strong at all. It's very mild, just like drinking fruit tea. Chu Qingyan sighed and shook her head, His Highness, everything is good, but he doesn't let me touch anything related to wine. He can't even make wine balls, let alone this peach blossom brew. Listening to Chu Qingyan's pitiful tone, Tianue and Qi Lingyi both expressed sympathy. Tianue suddenly let out an sound, and then quickly said to the amazement of the people at the table, I know why, His Highness must not like women to drink, so he doesn't let Sister Qingyan touch the wine. As soon as these words fell, Qi Lingyi, who was just about to bring the cup to her lips, suddenly stopped. After a moment, she immediately put down the cup, as if this wine was a scourge, and she didn't touch it again. Maybe. The surrounding people all commented on this peach blossom wine, and the air was filled with the fragrance of the wine. Chu Qingyan was like a deflated ball, and her answer was also weak. On the side, Hua Xiao took a sip of the wine and found that the taste was not bad. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw her friend's melancholy. Her eyes blinked, and then a cunning look flashed. At this time, her friend was chatting with Yu Tianyue, and Jasper was also chatting with Xining. Hua Xiao immediately put down the sleeve that had slipped down to her wrist. Her long arm stretched out, and the long sleeve in front of her friend brushed past the cup in front of her. When she left, the cup was still in its original place. But if one looked carefully, they would find that in the blink of an eye, the peach blossom wine had been replaced with tea. Since childhood, she treated the casino as her home, and all kinds of games were nothing to her, not to mention this kind of method. Hua Xiao felt proud in her heart, thinking about how her friend would look when she drank it. However, she felt a gaze on her body. She frowned and unexpectedly looked back, just in time to meet Qi Lingyi's evasive gaze. Hua Xiao was a veteran in the business world. Every movement of hers had her own imposing manner, so she could suppress those old and cunning partners or opponents. So that glance just now made Qi Lingyi's heart tremble slightly, and she bit her lips with fear in her heart. Seeing that it was her, Hua Xiao dispersed the imposing manner in her eyes. She did not notice that something was wrong with her, and winked at her, indicating that she should keep it a secret and not tell Qingyan. Qi Lingyi understood her meaning after a while and nodded without thinking. Originally, she did not want to tell Chu Qingyan. If what Tianyu guessed was true, then wouldn't the drunk Chu Qingyan be tired of the King of England? But when Hua Xiao withdrew her gaze with satisfaction, Qi Lingyi's heart began to feel conflicted. How did she become like this? Why did she have the thought of gloating? At this time, Chu Qingyan and Yu Tianyue's mouths were dry from talking, and they picked up the cup and drank it without looking at it. The mellow taste entered their throats. At first, it was slightly sour, but in the end, it was sweet, and the fragrance lingered in their lips and teeth. Chu Qingyan instantly widened her eyes. This is the first time I've drunk this kind of tea. The taste is very unique. Jasper, give me another cup. After saying that, Hua Xiao held her belly and laughed, which made Chu Qingyan puzzled. Tea? Ha, you can't even distinguish between wine and tea. Your tea is with me. Hua Xiao laughed until tears came out of her eyes, and she raised the cup in her hand and shook it at her. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. You changed my cup. Jasper and Xining stared blankly at Hua Xiao, their eyes filled with shock. Hua Xiao nodded generously. That's right. If it wasn't for me, would you have the chance to drink this peach blossom wine? Come, I'll fill it for you. Drink with me. It's boring to drink alone. As she said that, the cup was filled. Jasper and Xining didn't even have the time to stop her. Chu Qingyan looked at the fragrant wine and struggled in her heart. But at this time, Hua Xiao picked up the cup and stuffed it into her hand. In any case, you've already drunk it, so this cup won't make any difference. Besides, this wine is so mild. I usually drink it for fun, so I won't get drunk at all. Also, your highness won't find out. I can guarantee you, so you can rest assured. Chu Qingyan thought, that's the case. The barrier in her heart suddenly broke through, and she no longer held back. She raised her cup and clinked it with her good friends, and then drank it in one gulp. Hua Xiao was a little uncomfortable with her forthright manner. Although she felt that her good friend's expression was a little strange after drinking the first cup, she didn't think much of it and happily drank it. Xining and Jasper silently reflected on their mistakes. It would be hard to explain when they went back. Chapter 1058. Chu Qingyan drank one cup after another. Hua Xiaoli couldn't keep up with her at all. Before she even finished a cup of wine, her friend had already started to pour wine again. She drank wine as fast as she drank water. Not only was Hua Xiaoli stunned, but even Qi Lingyi and the others couldn't take their eyes off her. After a while, a full pot of wine was emptied by Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. She was a little unsatisfied. Wine is so delicious. In my impression, wine seems to be very bitter. Surely, we can also make peach blossom wine and sell it later. Hua Xiuli looked at her seriously. She found that her face wasn't red and she was full of spirit. Only then did she put down her worries. She also blamed herself for making a fuss. It was just a few cups of peach blossom wine. She couldn't get drunk. Okay, I'll arrange someone to try it. Hua Xiuli promised. Chu Qingyan nodded with a clear look. However, no one noticed that her eyes had changed from black to amber. It was just that under the sunlight, it was hard to distinguish. The flowers were appreciated, the poems were recited, the paintings were done, and the wine was drunk. It was almost time for the music to end and the people to disperse. Princess Huiyu had already withdrawn halfway because of the lack of spiritual power, leaving the poetry party to the young people. People gradually dispersed. Chu Qingyan and the others also got up and prepared to leave. What about His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince? Should we wait for him? Hua Xiuli suddenly found that one person was missing, so she asked. He's not a child. He knows how to go back by himself. Chu Qingyan looked around and didn't see anyone. She thought that he must be pestered by some girl and couldn't leave. She shook her head and laughed. Then she asked everyone to leave. When they left the garden, Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue's carriage was already waiting by the door. They said goodbye to Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiuli. I'm very happy to meet you today. Can I invite you out to play in the future? Yu Tianyue was still a child. She looked at them with some reluctance. Chu Qingyan felt that Yu Tianyue was innocent and cute. She couldn't help but smile and agree, okay, be careful on the road. Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue reluctantly walked towards the carriage. Elder sister Lingyi, elder sister Qingyan is beautiful, talented, and witty. She doesn't put on any airs and is very easy to get along with. Such a person looks so perfect. Yu Tianyue clasped her hands together as stars appeared in her eyes. Qi Lingyi looked back at the enviable figure and said, Miss Chu, in terms of ability, you're proficient in both the pen and the sword. You're also very talented. In terms of personality, you're humorous and flexible. I really admire you. Sister Lingyi, do you think the King of England admires Sister Qingyan's personality? Yu Tianyue's unintentional words were like a wooden stick that woke Qi Lingyi up. She retracted her fingers and felt very dejected. If His Royal Highness liked Miss Chu's type, then wouldn't there be no hope for her? She couldn't even reach Miss Chu's height. Sister Lingyi, why do you look so pale? Are you feeling unwell? Yu Tianyue asked worriedly. I'm fine. It was just too stuffy inside. Now that I'm out, I feel much better. Let's get on the carriage quickly. The residents will be worried if we go back late. Qi Lingyi immediately found an excuse to get away. Yu Tianyue smiled and nodded. The two of them then parted ways. However, Qi Lingyi was filled with melancholy when she went back. At this moment, Hua Xiuli and Chu Qingyan's carriage arrived. At the same time, Lord Lin appeared, dressed in fluttering white robes. Where have you been all this time? How can you bear to throw me down here to deal with those orioles and swallows? Hua Xiuli pouted and complained unhappily. I see that you've dealt with them quite well. Keep up the good work in the future. Lin Fengyi smiled at her lively appearance. She had always been the one to bully others. When had she ever been the one to be bullied? This was the case in Jiangnan, and it was the same in the capital. He was relieved. Hua Xiuli rolled her eyes. I don't care about these trivial matters of yours. Why did you only appear now? At this moment, many women slowed down their footsteps and looked up at Lin Fengyi from time to time. Their eyes were filled with emotions, and their cheeks were flushed red. Lin Fengyi took a step forward and raised his hand to place it on her head. He pinched a withered leaf and said softly and gently, I'll finish what I started. I'll bring you back. A gentle touch to the head killer. Chu Qingyan blinked. She didn't expect Lord Lin to be so skillful and calm when it came to flirting with girls. After not seeing him for a few months, she had to look at him in a different light. Lin Fengyi's intimate action instantly caused those women to look at Hua Xiuli. They were incomparably ashamed and resentful. Today, I've just seen a handsome and outstanding man. Who knew that this man already has a woman? My heart is sad, don't know my sorrow. Hua Xiuli flung his hand away and stuck her tongue out at him. You take one. I want to sit with Qing Yan. After she finished speaking, she turned around and pulled Qing Yan, who was watching the show, towards the first carriage. Hua Xiuli's rejection made those women bite their handkerchiefs in grief and indignation. Such a wonderful young man, but the woman didn't appreciate it. My heart is sad, don't know my sorrow. From today onwards, he believed that the news of him having a fiancé would spread. Presumably, no one would be so blind as to matchmake him. Lin Fengyi felt that he had already achieved his goal. He followed behind his Hua Xiuli contentedly and boarded the second carriage. This miser is too much. He's simply infuriating me. Hua Xiuli rambled the moment she boarded the carriage. Chu Qingyan laid on her side on the couch, one hand supporting her face. She said with a languid expression, "Isn't this pretty good? Isn't it exactly what you want when you take the initiative to label yourself as someone already taken? I reckon that in the future, the number of officials and aristocratic families who have designs on your official lin will decrease by half. Isn't this a good thing?" That seems to be right. Hua Xiuli finally reacted. I was muddle-headed from anger just now. Chu Qingyan smiled, a charming light swirling in her eyes. Hua Xiuli's gaze settled. Qingyan, I noticed that after you drank wine, your entire person seemed to change. How is it different? Isn't it still me? Chu Qingyan brushed the beautiful hair hanging over her shoulder as she said lazily. I can't say. Hua Xiuli shrugged. Then she remembered something. This was also the reason why she was sitting in the same carriage as her. But when she was about to speak, the person in front of her suddenly propped herself up like a willow. Her gaze was like water as she looked at her, causing her to forget what she wanted to say for a moment. Xiuli, I want to ask you something. Hua Xiuli swallowed her saliva. Ask away. You and official Lin should have already boarded the carriage. When will you buy the tickets? Chu Qingyan looked at her with a faint smile. Ah. What do you mean? She did not understand. It means that you have already consummated your marriage. When will you get married? Chu Qingyan brushed her hair as she said gently. Hua Xiuli's face instantly flushed red, and she could not say anything. Chu Qingyan changed her position and looked at her in confusion. Seeing that she did not answer, a light flashed in her mind. She asked with interest in her eyes, usually, when it comes to matters of the bed, which one of you takes the initiative? Hua Xiuli's head was steaming. I feel that it is not bad for a girl to take the initiative occasionally. It adds to the fun. What do you think? Hua Xiuli turned into a tomato. Xiuli, why aren't you saying anything? Why is your face so red? Is it very hot? Chu Qingyan blinked her eyes and asked innocently. Hua Xiuli squatted in the corner of her heart. Heavens, is this still the Qingyan that I know? She burst into tears. Chapter 1059. Qingyan, are you sure you're fine after drinking? You're not drunk at all. Hua Xiu poked her head out from the corner and carefully probed. Don't you think I'm fine? Do I look drunk? Besides, drunk people won't admit that they're drunk. Are you stupid? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes and ridiculed. Hua Xiu secretly thought about it and found that it was indeed the case. Are you usually on top or bottom? Chu Qingyan winked at her. It was yet another shocking sentence. Hua Xiu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She who was usually smooth with her words did not know what to say at this moment. What's there to be embarrassed about? let me tell you, actually is very normal. It's just a pity that I haven't eaten my big ice cube yet. Chu Qingyan's tone seemed to carry some regret. These words completely caused Hua Xiaoli to collapse. Qingyan little ancestor, don't say any more. Are you sleepy? Do you want to close your eyes and sleep for a while? Hua Xiao was already at a loss from her continuous shocking questions. At this moment, she regretted letting her good friend drink wine. It turned out that the drunk Qingyan was completely different from her usual self. It was as if she was a completely different person. Not only was she black-bellied, she also made people unable to resist her. No wonder the King of England did not let her touch wine. There was a reason for it. Her heart was filled with regret. Chu Qingyan waved her hand as if she saw through her thoughts. Her entire body softly leaned against the wall of the carriage and her lips hooked up into a smile. Xiao, don't be afraid. I won't eat you. I'm not afraid that you'll eat me. I'm afraid that I'll be killed by your highness' sword at the door. Also, don't smile at me so evilly. My nose is about to bleed. Hua Xiao covered her nose, afraid that she would lose her composure. She couldn't blame her poor self-control. It was because the person in front of her was like a rose bewitching charm, like a fairy. Every frown and smile had a strong charm. What was even more hateful was that this person was completely unaware of her own charm. She thought that if she were a man, she probably wouldn't have been able to resist long ago. Chu Qingyan supported her chin with one hand. Her eyes were as clear as water as she smiled slightly. My big ice cube isn't that violent, but he might throw you into the Fuli mountain range to mine. The corners of Hua Xiaomei's eyes twitched. Just as he was about to say something, the carriage suddenly stopped. According to the schedule, they would not arrive at the prince's mansion so soon. Hua Xiaomei could not help but frown. Chu Qingyan also restrained some of her impudence and said in a light tone. What happened? Master, it's His Highness the Fourth Prince. Jasper replied from outside the curtain. As if to confirm Jasper's words, Xiao Ran's voice sounded. Qingyan, it's me, Xiao Ran. When I returned to the courtyard earlier, you had already left. Didn't I immediately rush over here? A slightly panting voice sounded. Chu Qingyan wanted to lift the curtain and say a few words to him, but before she could say anything, Hua Xiao grabbed her wrist and stopped her. She turned her head and said to the outside of the carriage, many thanks for Fourth Prince's concern. Qingyan and I are already preparing to return home. If there's anything, we can talk about it next time. When Xiao Ran heard Hua Xiaomei's voice, he couldn't help but smile. I don't have anything to do. I just want to know how the poetry competition went. But this isn't a good place to talk. I'll send you back first. After saying that, they heard the sound of horse hooves moving forward. Hua Xiaomei raised her eyebrows. The main character hadn't agreed yet, and this person was acting on his own. She turned back to look at her good friend. At this moment, her good friend was leaning against the wall of the carriage and looking at her with a smile. You're still smiling. You're drunk, and Xiao Ran still wants to follow you back to the residence to chat with you. Aren't you afraid that something will happen? Hua Xiaomei automatically ignored those soul-sucking eyes. She was vexed. How could anyone see Qingyan like this? She was like a living, moving fragrant flower that attracted bees, and butterflies. How could she be at ease? It's fine. I'll just find an excuse to send him away. There's nothing to be afraid of. Chu Qingyan tilted her head. She wondered if the big ice cube had returned. She really wanted to see him. Hua Xiaomei looked at her hands under the sun. She didn't know where her thoughts had flown. She secretly heaved a sigh of relief. As long as she didn't ask about her and Miser, she would thank the heavens. It was really embarrassing. Speaking of which, why did her good friend become so irresistible when she drank? Too scary. She really wanted to quickly get off the carriage and escape to Miser's side. But there was Xiao Ran watching from the side. She couldn't be at ease and could only bite the bullet and act as a guardian angel. She only hoped that her good friend wouldn't say anything shocking. Her little heart wouldn't be able to take it. Hua Xiumei, I suddenly thought of something. Chu Qingyan's finger tapped her forehead as she suddenly said. What is it? Hua Xiumei's nerves tightened as she swallowed her saliva. Do you need me to tell Xining to arrange a place for you and Master Lin to live closer? Chu Qingyan blinked her eyes. She looked very kind. Why? Her intuition told her that it wasn't anything good. Her words were trembling, but she couldn't suppress her curiosity. Every night, Shaolai cavalry has to turn a blind eye to Master Lin coming to your courtyard at night. It's so troublesome. If you arrange a place closer, Master Lin can save time and won't have to sneak around. Don't you think so? Hua Xiumei cried in her heart. It clearly wasn't like that. Because some time ago, Miser was hit by the dresser that fell down because of her. So in the middle of the night, he came over to ask her to help him apply medicine. Although it wasn't convenient to disclose the reason why he was hit, but in the middle of the night, she and Miser were innocent. But she knew that no matter how she explained, in her good friend's ears, it would only make it more conspicuous. However, it also had the meaning of making it more conspicuous. Under Qingyan's insightful gaze, Hua Xiumei felt what it meant by, a day feels like a year. And at this time, Jasper's voice saved her from the fire and water. Master, young Master Hua, we're here. Hua Xiumei immediately let out a sigh of relief. Then she suddenly hugged her good friend's arm. Qingyan, I have a favor to ask of you. If the King of England investigates, you mustn't say that I let you drink the wine. You will die. Before Chu Qingyan could reply, Hua Xiumei immediately scrambled down the carriage. At this time, Lin Fengyi had just gotten off the carriage. Before he could stand firm, a big red ball in front of him suddenly threw herself into his arms. What's the matter? Lin Fengyi supported her body. Seeing that she was covered in pink, he asked in amusement. Miser, let's go as far as we can today. We'll stay outside for as long as we can. Let's not go back to the prince's residence first, okay? Hua Xiumei bitterly raised her head from his arms. Why? Lin Fengyi didn't understand. Hua Xiumei said with teary eyes, I'm afraid that the King of England will destroy the evidence. Chapter 1060. What bad things did you do this time? Lin Fengyi had a deep understanding of this lass's destructive power, so he held back his laughter as he asked. Anyway, don't ask anymore. Let's run. Hua Xiuxi turned around and saw that her good friend had already gotten off the carriage. She grabbed his sleeve and ran in the opposite direction without a care. Lin Fengyi wanted to say that he could take the carriage away, but after feeling her soft warmth on his fingertips, he swallowed his words and let her hold his hand. Xiao Ran had just gotten off the horse when he saw Hua Xiuxi's fleeing figure. He was a bit puzzled. What's wrong with Miss Xiuxi? Maybe she's shy. Chu Qingyan laughed softly, feeling that it was very amusing. Her voice seemed to be wrapped in sugar, causing Xiao Ran to involuntarily turn his eyes to look at her. The person in front of him had black hair and red clothes. She was as beautiful as a flower, giving him a different feeling from before. It was as if when he saw her, his heart would beat very fast. Chu Qingyan was about to step up the steps, but she felt a gaze staring at her. She raised her eyebrows and turned around, coincidentally meeting Xiao Ran's gaze. She blinked in confusion. Why are you looking at me like that? Is there a flower on my face? He really wanted to answer. In his eyes, she was like a blooming flower. No. Xiao Ran awkwardly looked away and stammered. Chu Qingyan shrugged. When she was about to step up the steps, she turned around and looked at Xiao Ran indifferently. I drank some wine just now, so I'm not feeling very well. If there's nothing else, you can go back first. I'll entertain you later. When Xiao Ran heard that she was not feeling well, his tone became a bit anxious. Do you want me to call an imperial physician to take a look at you? Chu Qingyan laughed softly. It's not a big matter. There's no need to make such a big fuss. Go back slowly. After saying that, she waved her hand at him. Xiao Ran thought that he was making a fuss over nothing. He nodded and watched her enter the residence before turning around to leave. On the way back, Xiao Ran's mind was still filled with the beautiful woman's fluttering clothes. Suddenly, he came to his senses. He finally realized what was different about Qing Yan just now. It was the look in her eyes. Although she was smiling, there was a feeling that she understood the world and kept people 1,000 miles away. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He hoped that this was just an illusion and not real. Xining followed behind her mistress and asked hesitantly, "Mistress, did you want to send the fourth prince away just now?" Because she didn't feel that her mistress was feeling unwell all the way here. Not stupid. Chu Qingyan reached out to pinch her face and praised her with a smile. She felt that it felt good, so she pinched her face a few more times. Xining still wanted to ask something, but she was stunned by her master's abnormal behavior. Looking at her master's back, Xining pulled on Jasper and asked in a small voice, "Jasper, did you notice that something is wrong with mistress?" Jasper also said in a low voice, "You're not alone. It seems like after drinking, mistress has become a different person. Whether it's speaking or doing things, there's an indescribable feeling. But it doesn't seem like she's drunk." Xining tried hard to think of a way to describe it. Jasper nodded in agreement. "His Highness has a reason for not letting mistress drink. We should follow mistress closely. I'll go make a bowl of hangover soup. I'll leave the task of following mistress to you," Xining said. Jasper nodded and the two of them went to do their jobs. At this time, Chu Qingyan had already walked into the yard. Huo Ling happened to be in the yard. Seeing his princess consort walk over, he immediately bowed. "Little princess consort, you're back." Where's his highness? Is he back?" Chu Qingyan stood still and stroked her long hair as she lazily replied. "In the military camp, there's someone causing trouble. Mistress went to deal with it and hasn't come back yet," Huo Ling reported. "All right, you can go." She waved her hand and walked towards Xiao Su's room. Huo Ling was about to leave when he stopped. He turned back to look at the back of the little princess consort and slightly raised an eyebrow. There seemed to be a scent of alcohol on the little princess consort. He thought of how his master had told him to keep a close eye on the little princess consort and not let her touch a single drop of alcohol. If they found out, they had to immediately report it to him. But looking at it now, even though the little princess consort had drunk alcohol, she was the same as usual. He thought that there shouldn't be anything wrong, so he didn't immediately send someone to report to his master. Thinking that he still had important matters to take care of, he immediately turned to leave. Chu Qingyan had just walked up the stairs when she saw Hong Yi and Lve coming out of the room. "Greetings to Princess Consort." Hong Yi and Lve bowed in greeting. Chu Qingyan nodded and prepared to enter. At this time, Hong Yi stepped forward and blocked Chu Qingyan's path. She said with a serious expression, "Princess Consort, Lord hasn't come back yet. Are you going back to your room to rest first?" Chu Qingyan stood in place and raised an eyebrow. It turned out that this Yatu was challenging her. "His Highness said that his things are my things, so his room is my room. I'm just sleeping in my own room. Why do you have so many questions?" Chu Qingyan lazily replied with a half smile on her lips. With such a righteous reason and such a straightforward question, Hong Yi felt as if she couldn't hold on to her face any longer. "But you and Lord haven't officially married yet. It's not right for you to casually enter Lord's room like this and it will ruin your reputation. It's better for you to wait for Lord to come back before you find him." Even though she was trembling with anger right now, she relied on the ability to keep her composure that she had cultivated over the years to be able to smile and finish speaking at this time. Jasper stood to the side and couldn't keep listening. This Hong Yi was really looking for trouble. Her hands itched and she really wanted to throw this person out of the yard. "Hong Yi, you're becoming more and more daring." The low and gentle words and the trace of pressure in the laziness seemed to wrap around everyone present, making them unable to move at all. the atmosphere instantly became cold. Lve, who was standing to the side without saying anything, could feel the coldness in the air. In this kind of sunny day, it actually made people want to rub their arms. Jasper stopped the impulse to move forward because she could feel the faint coldness coming from her master's body. She knew that she didn't need to do anything at this time. This servant doesn't dare. Hong Yi gritted her teeth and endured the waves of coldness that came from the bottom of her feet. Don't dare. Chu Qingyan gave her a mocking look. In this king's palace, is there anything you don't dare to do? Do you think that I can't see what you're doing behind my back? I just feel that you're a smart person. When I took your power, you should have repented and not become worse. If it wasn't for the fact that you've dedicated 10 years of your life to the king's palace, I wouldn't have let a piece of rat poop spoil the entire pot of porridge. Lve and Jasper were also like this. Hong Yi was frozen in place by her words. Chapter 1061. Chu Qingyan's words not only shocked Hong Yi, even Lve was shocked. It was like it was the first time she had seen this kind of Wang Fei. She didn't have her usual smiling and easy to talk to. She smiled gently, but her words were sharp and to the point. She was like a rose with thorns. Anyone who wanted to pick it would have to bear the sharp thorns. At this time, Chu Qingyan came close to Hong Yi and unexpectedly reached out to touch her face. Hong Yi was afraid of her status and she didn't dare to move. Her fingers gently stroked as if it was the intimacy between good friends. Only the person involved could feel the invisible coldness. Wang Fei, you, Hong Yi couldn't speak coherently. Chu Qingyan moved to her ear and smiled. She said in a voice that both of them could hear, Hong Yi, I believe you know better than anyone else who leaked the news of His Highness leaving the capital. I have 1,000 ways to make your life worse than death. If you know what's good for you, know your place and don't cause any more trouble. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Otherwise, if you're not careful, you'll go down to drink tea with the King of Hell. This is the last warning. Be good and listen to me. After saying this, Chu Qingyan straightened her back and pulled her hand back. She took the handkerchief that Jasper handed to her and wiped her fingers. Then she walked into the room as if nothing had happened. After the door was closed, Lve saw that Hong Yi's face was pale and her body was trembling. She said in shock, Hong Yi, what's wrong? I'm fine. Go to the warehouse yourself. I won't accompany you. Hong Yi turned to leave after saying this. She didn't want anyone to see her in such a sorry state. Lve looked at the fleeing figure and couldn't help but turn to look at the tightly shut door. Hong Yi mistakenly thought that this was a house cat that could be bullied by anyone, but she did not expect that the other party was actually a sleeping tiger. It was just that it usually did not pay attention to these small things and did not bother to argue with people. Now that she had awakened the tiger, how could the tiger tolerate such humiliation again and again? Wang Fei was a smart and kind person, but it didn't mean that she didn't have a temper. Therefore, Hong Yi was asking for trouble and reaping what she had sown. Lve shook her head. As a person, it was better to be clear about one's identity. A sparrow was a sparrow. Don't always try to put on colorful feathers to become a phoenix. Hong Yi was too arrogant and conceited. He hoped that she would not take the wrong path in the future. Having been maids for so many years, how could they not understand each other's nature? Lve gave a soft sigh and walked towards the warehouse alone. Chu Qingyan entered the room and looked around. Finally, she sat down on a chair and gently rubbed her head with a tired expression. Master, are you planning to make a move against Hong Yi? Jasper asked in a low voice. Just now, she had felt the killing intent from her master. It was very faint and quickly disappeared. Recently, there have been some things in the food that have been spread. I have been paying attention to Hong Yi and feel that she has been acting suspiciously recently. But she is very cunning and no one has been able to catch her. I was just using a trick to test her, but I didn't think that she would give herself away. Chu Qingyan supported her forehead with one hand and gave a faint smile. Do you need this subordinate to capture her and interrogate her? Jasper knew that the killing intent was purposely released by her master and asked. That would alert the enemy. I want to know who is behind her. Have Sui send people to keep an eye on her. Also, have him investigate Hong Yi's background before she entered the Fu. At the same time, find a chance to test if she has any martial arts. Her fingertips drew circles on her forehead. After thinking for a while, she slowly gave out orders. Jasper nodded. This subordinate understands. This subordinate will not let Hong Yi know that we are investigating her. You can leave. Don't let anyone disturb me. Chu Qingyan half closed her eyes and waved her hand at her. Jasper did not say anything else and immediately left. She closed the door and stood guard by the door to prevent anyone from disturbing her master's rest. When she was the only one left in the room, the clarity and sharpness in her eyes suddenly dissipated, and the stars in her eyes disappeared bit by bit. At the same time, she felt her head start to feel dizzy. Her entire body's strength was gradually draining away. It was as if the mental strength that she had been holding on the entire journey was disintegrating at this moment. The peach blossom wine's alcohol content was not high, but that was only for ordinary people. However, it was different for Chu Qingyan. Furthermore, that jug of wine had been poured down her throat in such a hurry that it had already accumulated in her body. Although it did not show much during the poetry gathering, along the way, teasing inside her sleeves, and fighting Hong Yi with her wits had stimulated the wine in her body. At this time, she came to Xiao Su's room. The air was filled with a familiar scent that made her feel at ease and relaxed. When the wine rushed up, her mind became muddled and the wine in her body also evaporated. She stood up shakily from the chair. As if she was walking on clouds, she staggered towards the bed. The sky gradually darkened and lanterns began to be lit in the Fu. When night fell, there were already torches everywhere. When Xiao Su dismounted from his horse, it was already close to night. Princess Consort is back. He handed the reins to the servant. Huling greeted him outside the door and replied, she came back in the afternoon. Now she is in your room, but what? Xiao Su did not stop and walked directly to his courtyard. Since young Princess Consort came back, she has not left her room. Xining asked her to eat dinner, but she was sent away. Because he had just come back, he did not know the specific situation. He only heard Xining and the others talking about it, so he reported it truthfully. Xiao Su frowned slightly. Did something happen at the poetry gathering today? When the young Princess Consort came back, Huling asked the servant who followed her. He immediately replied, the matter is neither big nor small. It's just that Princess Huiyu and Jing Mingzhu, the daughter of the Minister of Rites, deliberately made things difficult for the Princess Consort. However, the Princess Consort easily resolved the matter. As for the rest, everything went smoothly. I heard that the young Princess Consort also got to know several young ladies from the officials' families and got along quite well. Xiao Su listened as he walked. When he heard that Princess Huiyu made things difficult for the little fellow, his face became a little cold. Later, when he heard that the little fellow met new friends, the haze between his brows faded a little. Okay, this prince knows. Go and tell the kitchen to prepare dinner. Princess Consort and I will go to the hall together. At this time, Xiao Su had already walked to the courtyard. At a glance, he saw Jasper, who was guarding at the door. He turned his head and ordered Huling. Huling nodded and left. Xiao Su went to the door. Is Princess Consort still inside? Jasper nodded respectfully. Yes, Master has not come out yet. You can leave. Xiao Su said. Jasper nodded and left. Xiao Su pushed open the door. A lamp flickered and the whole room was a little dim. He glanced around the room and finally fixed his eyes on the bed. He walked towards the bed. Standing in front of the bed, he leaned over and reached out to lift the bed curtain. Suddenly, a slender arm reached out and grabbed his wrist, pulling him into the curtain. Chapter 1062. This sudden turn of events made Xiao Su instinctively want to make a move. However, when he saw that pair of clear eyes in the dim light, Xiao Su immediately stopped. This pause made him unable to stabilize himself. Coupled with the pull of her arm, his entire body fell towards her. In order not to hurt her, Xiao Su immediately changed his angle in midair. When he landed, his hands pressed on both sides of her body to support his body. His black hair fell and pressed against her black hair as if they were one. Why did you sneak attack me without saying anything? If I didn't see clearly that it was you and made a move on you, the consequences would be very serious. He had just returned from the military camp and taught that brat a lesson. The evil aura around him had not dissipated. If he had not reacted quickly, the little fellow would have been affected by him. In her words, there was a helpless and doting reprimand. Perhaps Xiao Su himself didn't notice, but when he saw her, the cold air around him slowly melted like dewdrops in the morning under the first rays of the morning sun. Chu Qingyan smiled innocently at him. The hand that was holding his wrist just now stuck to his arm and slowly moved up. Like a vine that was constantly growing, it wrapped around his arm bit by bit. She could feel that under his clothes, the tight and bursting muscles that possessed the charm of a man. Her fingers reluctantly circled around his shoulder and at the same time, her other hand circled around his neck. When that soft and seemingly boneless arm wrapped around him, he felt that the skin that she had rubbed against was burning like a flame, but it was like a green grass, scratching at his heart and lungs in the water where the bottom of the water could be seen. At this moment, the two of them were facing each other and were very close. As long as one of them bent down or raised his head, he would be able to touch the other's lips. Chu Qingyan did the same. Her voice was as charming as silk. I just wanted to give you a surprise. As soon as she finished speaking, she lifted her body and pressed her lips against his. He suddenly trembled. She mischievously stuck out her tongue and traced the beautiful shape of his lips. Xiao Su was teased by her and his body started to heat up from the inside out. However, his rationality prevailed. He tilted his head slightly and avoided her lips. Chu Qingyan, who had failed to get what she wanted, licked her lips and glared at him unhappily. Xiao Su knew that she was unhappy, but he was more puzzled. How did the little girl become like this after going out for a while? However, because of the wine she drank today, she could no longer smell it. However, the wine accumulated in her body and became more and more fragrant, making her unable to control herself. She persevered, preparing to approach him again. Seeing this, Xiao Su wanted to get up, but ignored the vine-like hands wrapped around his neck. He had no choice but to stretch out his hand to support her. However, the bottom of the quilt was smooth, and his hand slipped. Coupled with the weight of the little fellow, he fell awkwardly onto the bed. As for the person who was hanging on his body, because of his slip, her whole body was stuck to his body like soft mud. So Big Ice Cube likes the position below. Her hands were on his shoulders, and her hair was like ink that fell on both sides of his shoulders. Her eyes were charming like silk, and the words she said made the person below her tense up. However, she was able to maintain an innocent and pure appearance, not feeling that she had said anything embarrassing. Xiao Su was lost in her charm. He couldn't help but raise his hand to caress her beautiful face. However, he stopped in midair and narrowed his eyes. You drank? The faint fragrance of wine lingered in her hair as she sat on top of the table. Big Ice Cube, why is your nose so sharp? I thought I could hide it from you. She pouted and was a little annoyed. He had an answer to her unusual behavior tonight. Didn't I tell you not to drink? Why didn't you listen? Xiao Su suddenly felt a bit of a headache. Every time she touched wine, her temperament would change and she would be completely different from her usual self. I didn't do it on purpose. They all said that the degree wasn't high and that it was like drinking fruit tea, so I drank it. Moreover, look, I'm not drunk yet, right? What are you worried about? She lowered her head and looked at the person below. She blinked and suddenly naughtily reached out to take off his mask. When she saw his handsome face, she couldn't help hugging him and rubbing her face against his neck. Big Ice Cube, you're really good looking, even better than me. I want to hide you so that you can only belong to me. She acted coquettishly. This coquettish voice and strong dependence made Xiao Su's heart melt into a pool of water. Fool, even if you don't hide, I'm still yours. Our Ian, in my eyes, is the most beautiful. He gave a low laugh and reached out to rub her head. She pouted and heavily kissed him on the cheek, smiling happily. It's been stamped. From now on, you're mine. Fool. Xiao Su was helpless against her childish actions, but after she laid down, rubbed against him, and kissed him, he felt the emotions that he had been suppressing fluctuate. His eyes slightly darkened. He felt that if he didn't leave this place, he would do something he didn't expect. Normally when he rubbed, hugged, and kissed her, he could still control the extent. After all, the little fellow was still sober, but the little fellow in front of him was drunk. He didn't dare guarantee that he would be unable to control his passion for her. With a thought, he wanted to get up and increase the distance between the two of them. But the person on top of him seemed to have sensed his thoughts and threw herself at him, pressing down on him with her entire body weight. What are you doing? The questioning voice in her seductive voice didn't have any strength at all. Instead, it made the listener's body go soft. I'll have someone prepare a hangover soup for you. The little fellow's weight was nothing to him, but with her serious expression, he also treated it seriously. No, you can't move. She approached him, the tip of her nose touching his as she fiercely threatened. But this threat to him was like a child throwing a tantrum. It was just a bluff, he didn't put it in his eyes at all. You're not allowed to laugh, be serious. She saw the smile on his face. It was so beautiful that she was about to be lost in his smile. But she quickly came back to her senses and gave a soft snort. Xiao Su was tactful. He knew that he could only go along with her at this time, otherwise he didn't know what this little fellow would do. But at this time, he suddenly thought of an extremely important matter. Where did you drink? The person who had the upper hand just now heard the big ice cube's serious question. His imposing manner immediately dropped a bit as he honestly replied, at the poetry gathering. His face immediately sank. He was very sure that in these past few years, the number of times this little fellow had drunk could be counted on one hand. The drunken state was right in front of him. He liked this little fellow's coquettish appearance, but he wouldn't allow others to see this little fellow. He would feel like his treasure was being peeped at by others. Chapter 1063. The atmosphere suddenly froze, and the temperature plummeted. Chu Qingyan felt her entire body shiver. No matter how muddle-headed she was when she was drunk, she could still feel the emotions of the people below. She held his face with both hands, blinked her eyes, and asked softly, Big Ice Cube, are you angry? Ian, what did you do after you drank at the poetry gathering? He looked at her seriously. Chu Qingyan shook her head. I finished the whole pot of wine. Xiao Yi only drank a few cups, and then we came back, but what? His voice tightened. She was oblivious to the change in him as she was immersed in what happened in the afternoon. She smiled proudly. I flirted with Xiao Yi in the car and lied to her that I would arrange her room in the same place as official Lin's. She was so scared that she almost cried. He, Big Ice Cube, you didn't see how Xiao Yi looked at that time. She looked like a cooked prawn, very, very red. She always teases you. What you did was exactly what I wanted. Xiao Su did not feel that there was anything wrong with her teasing her friend. Instead, he admired it. If Lin Fengyi knew that he was such a good friend, he would probably vomit blood. However, at this moment, in his eyes, the little fellow in front of him had rosy skin. The silver-red clothes on her body were like a red prawn shell wrapped around her body, making him want to eat to his heart's content. Oh right, we also met Xiao Ran on the way back. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt the hand holding her waist tighten. She puffed up her cheeks. Big Ice Cube, what's wrong with you? Did you do anything inappropriate to Xiao Ran? Like how you're treating me now. He couldn't be blamed for having such thoughts. It was just that after the little fellow got drunk, she was really too abnormal. He was afraid that if he wasn't by her side, she would do something abnormal. No matter who it was, she would pounce on them. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly buried her head in his shoulder, her shoulders twitching. Before Xiao Su could understand the meaning of her actions, he heard her uncontrollable laughter. "Big Ice Cube, are you jealous?" She looked up and laughed happily, her eyes sparkling. Xiao Su couldn't help but raise his head and bite her lips as punishment. He was worried, but she was laughing without a care in the world. Chu Qingyan felt a sharp pain on her lips as she moaned softly. Not to be outdone, she wanted to kiss him on the lips. Her entire body was moving around on top of him, causing a small flame to ignite in his body. Xiao Su felt that he could not go on like this. He steeled his heart and avoided her lips. That pink and moist lips brushed past the corner of his mouth and slid to his ear. He trembled slightly and instantly got up, wanting to leave. In fact, he should be happy for such a passionate person, but he sighed because every time this little fellow woke up, she would not remember anything. If he really went along with her wishes when she was drunk, if she regretted it when she woke up, then he would not be able to bear it. Rather than that, he might as well not respond to her passion. When the time came, when it was justified, then he would eat her up. Wouldn't that be better? However, the little fellow was even more clingy than he thought. Her hands were tightly wrapped around his neck. When he got up, her whole body followed him, like a sloth, hanging on his body. She smiled proudly. "You want to get rid of me?" "No way, I want to rely on you for the rest of my life." Xiao Su, who was suffering from the torture of ice and fire in his body, couldn't help but laugh when he heard her childish words. "You can rely on me for a lifetime, 2 lifetimes, or even forever. But now, before you wake up, I won't do anything to you. So be good, be obedient, lie on the bed, and don't move around." When she heard this, she felt a little indignant. "Who said I'm not awake? I'm awake. I know who I am, and I know who you are. Let me tell you, although I'm very happy that you were jealous just now, I want to explain it to you." Xiao Su looked at her. "Speak." At this moment, he could only follow her wishes and listen to her. He would find another opportunity to make her obediently lie on the bed. She curled her lips, then said in all seriousness, "Although I can't control my actions when I drink, as if something in my body has been released, my thoughts are very clear. I know that I will only have this kind of feeling when I'm facing you. If it's in front of others, I, Chu Qingyan, will still be the same. I won't pounce on a man whenever I see one." She paused, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. She leaned forward and kissed him, then said in a playful and serious tone, "The only person I've always been thinking of, the only person I want to pounce on, is you. I don't care about anyone else at all. The only person I've always been thinking of, the only person I want to pounce on, is you. The only person I want to pounce on, is you. Only you." This sentence kept echoing in Xiao Su's ears. He was a little surprised. "You mean, you're only like this towards me? Of course, my eyes can only accommodate you. How can I have the mood to look at anyone else?" She harumphed. Big Ice Cube was too stupid to actually let his imagination run wild. After she finished harumphing, a sense of satisfaction surged in her heart. This Big Ice Cube was really cute. Then I'm relieved. But don't drink recklessly in the future. You're making people worried. He raised his hand and stroked her long hair. The soft strands of hair twined around his fingertips, making him feel at peace. Today, she was much better than the past few times. At least she could talk to him soberly. It was different from the past few times when she clung onto him, so he could calm down and talk to her. "Big Ice Cube, I like it when you're jealous. It's different from usual. It's not so abstinent and cold, as if there's a spark in the world." She bit her finger and looked at him. "Silly." He chuckled lightly. In front of him was the woman he had always been thinking of and doting on in his heart. As long as she looked at him, moved, or approached him, he would instantly lose his mind and reveal his true self. And he was willing to reveal his true self to her. Because she was his deep love. You always say that I'm silly, but even if I'm silly, the goods are already sold and there's no return. It's too late for you to regret it. But do you want to open the box and check it now? She wriggled her body and sat on his body. Her hands turned into vines again and wrapped around his body. Ian. Xiao Su's body trembled. The waves in his body that he had deliberately ignored earlier began to become restless because of her proximity. Big ice cube, don't worry. I only like you. Then shouldn't we get down to business? She put her hands on his shoulders and moved closer to his eyes. She breathed out and said with a charming look, "So, can you take off your clothes now?" Chapter 1064. The little fellow's words made Xiao Su stunned on the spot. This was undoubtedly a sudden clap of thunder. Even if it was Xiao Su who commanded thousands of troops, he was still unable to regain his senses from those words. Ian, you can't. He carried her up and prepared to place her on the bed to increase the distance between the two of them. But this little fellow was like a soft and boneless octopus, tightly wrapped around him, and he couldn't get her off. If he used too much strength, he was afraid that he would hurt her. Xiao Su couldn't bear to do so. In the end, he still thought of trying to persuade her. Ian, be good and listen to me. Let go of me first and have a good sleep. When you're awake, I'll do whatever you want to do. How about that? When Chu Qingyan heard that, she snorted lightly. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? That I'll fall for your trick so easily? Xiao Su was speechless at this moment. I don't care, no matter what, I'm going to do you today. Take off all your clothes. Hurry. Otherwise I'll do it myself. She said in a domineering manner, and in the end, she suddenly blinked her eyes and leaned close to him. She breathed into his ear, I know, you actually want me very much too. It was as if a warm current had rushed into his brain and exploded in his brain, causing him to forget to think for a moment. And a certain someone had already started to move her hands all over him. Her soft hands were placed on his waist and she was trying to undo his belt. Suddenly, a pair of large hands wrapped around her tightly. She raised her eyes and stared at him with some dissatisfaction. A suppressed voice rang in her ear. Ian, have you thought it through? The low and hoarse voice poured out warmth, and the temperature around the two of them suddenly rose. Xiao Su was as indifferent as usual, but under that calm appearance, the blood in his body was boiling, as if it was going to spurt out very soon. Chu Qingyan felt the air suddenly thin. The person in front of her was different from the past. He was like a hibernating leopard, waiting for the right moment to strike. Her heart suddenly thumped, but she quickly suppressed that feeling. Wasn't the person in front of her the one she wanted? What was there to hesitate about? She nodded heavily and reached out to hold his face with both hands. She said seriously and shyly, I've always known it. Big ice cube, I love you. This was like the last straw that broke Xiao Su's back. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she felt a strong aura emanating from his body that could not be ignored. It gradually enveloped the two of them, making her involuntarily want to retreat, but she stubbornly looked at him with a determined gaze. However, in the dim room, as night fell, the light was swallowed up bit by bit. She could only see that his eyes were getting brighter and brighter, as if they were about to overshadow the candlelight. The him in front of her seemed to be swallowed up by the darkness, leaving only that pair of enchanting eyes. It made people unable to help but follow the vortex in his eyes, desperately wanting to step in and then fall into oblivion, unwilling to wake up. Just as she was about to lose herself in his silent charm, suddenly, the sky and earth turned. When her back touched the soft bed and the cold silk brocade was pressed against her neck, she finally reacted. When she looked up, the person she was tightly hugging was already above her. His eyes were as bright as the stars, looking down at her from above. She was immediately captivated as she stared at him in a daze. Knock knock, at this time, the door was knocked without warning. Chu Qingyan came back to her senses and bit her lip. Who was such a killjoy? She turned her head and only saw the fluttering bed curtains and the vague image of the door. Master, the kitchen has already prepared the meal. Do you and the little princess want to eat? It was Huoling's voice. Xiao Su's gaze fell on her face, but he did not even raise his head. No need. Seal off the entire courtyard. Don't let anyone come in and disturb me. His voice was as calm as usual. Yes. Huoling did not think much and immediately went to do it. The sound of footsteps gradually faded away until it could no longer be heard. But when the footsteps were far away, Chu Qingyan found that her heart was slowly starting to beat faster. Because the person who had just finished speaking was approaching her bit by bit. Those astonishingly bright eyes were already right in front of her. Ayan, even if you regret it now, it's already too late. He said in a hoarse voice. His fingers climbed up her cheeks and gently pushed aside the strands of hair that had fallen on her cheeks. His 5 fingers touched her hair. She looked at him with a smile. I never regret anything, otherwise I would never do it. Good. As his voice fell, his fingertips moved and the hairpin inserted into her hair fell into his hand. Her gaze fell on his hand. The golden hairpin stopped in his hand, making his knuckles look slender and smooth. It was very beautiful. She ridiculed in her heart. How could a man's fingers be so beautiful? How could a woman like her live? When she was absent-minded, she felt a cold sensation on her lips. When she came back to her senses, she saw that he had unknowingly touched her lips. His eyes were so dark that she could not see the bottom. The person in front of her had black hair scattered behind his head. His skin was white and his lips were red. Black, red, and white. These 3 extreme colors overlapped in front of his eyes, like a beautiful painting. Ayan. He whispered in her ear. Woo, she subconsciously responded, but her voice was blocked. The fiery kiss seemed to want to suck all the air out of her lungs. She was forced to endure his passion. In the end, she could not help but wrap her arms around his neck and respond. This was like adding fuel to a fire. With a rip sound, her belt was already undone by him. When he pulled it out, it rubbed against the quilt and finally floated down to the bed. The outer garment was no longer restrained. As the two rubbed against each other, it quickly fell apart. It revealed the white inner garment inside. Under the dim light, his eyes were filled with her delicate and beautiful face. His hand caressed her eyes, nose bridge, red lips, white neck, and finally into her inner garment. She could not help but shrink her body. A layer of sparkling tears welled up in her eyes. Her lips could not help but let out a moan. Her low moan made his body instantly tense. His attacks became more and more fierce. Under his lips, she softened into a puddle of water, allowing him to do as he pleased. In her bright and innocent eyes, Xiao Su was afraid that he could not control his strength. His heart moved. The ice silk brocade was lifted and covered the 2 young bodies. It also covered the overlapping and lingering feelings that surged like a tide. Under the dim yellow light, one could vaguely see pieces of clothing lying on the ground, stacked together in the most ambiguous posture. Through the trembling bed curtains, the scene inside could not be seen clearly. Only the towering brocade quilt could be seen, constantly moving up and down. As well as the low moans and light gasps that made one's ears turn red. There's still a long time. I still have a lifetime to slowly grind with you. Chapter 1065. Summer nights were shorter than other seasons. The morning sun rose early, but set late. This was the so-called long days and short nights. However, spring nights were usually short. However, when a certain person woke up, he turned his head in a refreshed manner. His arm was a bit numb from the little fellow's pillow, but he did not plan on moving it away. He reached out and pulled her closer. At this time, Chu Qingyan was still in dreamland. When she felt the familiar scent, she automatically leaned against him. She reached out her hands to hug his waist and obediently buried her head in his chest. The close contact of their bodies made Xiao Su's body slightly stiffen. The early morning rush made him feel a bit of pain. He closed his eyes and forcefully suppressed the restlessness in his body. After calming down a bit, he opened his eyes and turned to face the person in his arms. He lowered his head and placed a light kiss on her forehead. He sighed in his heart. She really was a torturous little fellow. Thinking of the scene from last night, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. They had tossed around until late last night. He closed his eyes again and prepared to hug the person in his arms to catch up on sleep. There was no morning court today. He had an entire day to face the various scenes after the little fellow woke up. He curled his lips. He was looking forward to what kind of performance the little fellow would have when she woke up. But not long after, there was a knock on the door. "Master, His Majesty has an order for you to enter the palace." Turin was standing outside the door. These hidden guards all knew that the little princess had spent the night in their master's room. Originally, Hu Ling had wanted to report this news, but this brat had thrown the news to him. He said that he didn't want to cause trouble at this time and ran away. At this time, Turin braced himself and knocked on the door to report. Xiao Su suddenly opened his eyes. Ben Wang understands. He had to make a trip to the palace. Although he was reluctant, he still let go of the person in his arms and prepared to sit up. Chu Qingyan felt that he wanted to leave. She couldn't help but tighten her arms and hang on to him like a sloth. If it was a normal day, she would have already woken up with this little bit of movement. However, perhaps because the alcohol had not completely subsided, she was still acting like a little girl. Moreover, the person beside her was the person she trusted the most, so she lazed in bed and refused to wake up. Xiao Su hurriedly reached out to support her body, afraid that she would lose her balance and fall down. His movement was what she wanted, and she hummed in satisfaction. Xiao Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but in the end, he still patiently coaxed, "I need to go to the palace. Be good and wait for me to come back." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt her hand loosen, but she was still in a state of deep sleep. He curled his lips and put her down. He got up and put on his clothes. After putting on his mask and getting dressed properly, he turned around and wrapped her in a brocade blanket. Then, he carried her, pushed open the window, and flew out. Using his qinggong, he sent her into her room. At this time, Xining, who was in the room, saw His Royal Highness flying in through the window. Although she was shocked, she immediately walked over. "Your Highness." Xiao Su put her down on the bed and turned around to ask, "Does everyone in the courtyard know that Ian came back last night?" Last night, this servant told the people in the courtyard that Master was not feeling well and came back early to rest before you came back. If there is nothing important this morning, don't disturb her. No one should be suspicious. Last night, she and Jasper had been scared out of their wits. His Highness suddenly sent someone to tell them to make an illusion and pretend that Master was resting in her room. Although the two of them were inexperienced maidservants, they spent their days with women and were influenced by what they saw and heard. They knew what was going on and were quite happy for their master. After all, she and His Highness had already experienced so many things. It was normal for them to have a positive result. Xining and Jasper had been by her side for so long that their minds were no longer pedantic. When it came to matters between men and women, success came naturally. However, gossip was a fearful thing. Although Master and His Highness were engaged and had lived together for so many years and were already very close, they were still not officially married. They were afraid that bad rumors would spread, so the two of them immediately made a tight arrangement and put on a show to make everyone think that Master was staying in her own courtyard and did not go anywhere. Xiao Su nodded, "Very good. Go down and prepare to eat first. When Ian wakes up, we can eat at any time." Xining acknowledged and immediately left the room. At this time, Xiao Su reached out to caress the little fellow on the bed who only had her head exposed. His gaze fell on her captivating red lips. They were like the first rays of the morning sun, the first dew of a jasper flower. It was so moving that he couldn't help but want to pluck them. And he did just that. Bending his body closer to her lips, he sucked on them and hooked the little fellow inside. Bit by bit, he devoured the air in her body. Seeing that she had no choice but to take deep breaths, he opened the entire castle to him, allowing him to take as much as he wanted. After her face and ears were flushed red, he finally left her lips. However, his forehead was pressed against hers, and their breaths were tightly intertwined. Looking at her slightly dissatisfied frown, he lowered his head and smiled. Dissatisfaction was the right thing to do. This should be her punishment for tormenting him for the entire night. Time waits for no one. He reached out and gently pinched her face. In a doting voice that he didn't even realize, he said, "Be good and wait for me to come back." After saying that, he withdrew his hand and left through the window again. Not long after Xiao Su left, the person on the bed felt a little warm. She turned over, but felt a slight numbness on her skin. Her long eyelashes fluttered and slowly opened. She stretched lazily on the bed. The sunlight shone in through the window, and her arm happened to be facing the light. It was white with a hint of red, and red with a hint of light. She opened her hazy eyes and couldn't help but smile. She felt that she had slept very comfortably last night. Wait a minute, the clothes on her body looked familiar, but it definitely wasn't hers. Wait a minute, why were there so many marks on her arm that was exposed to the air when the sleeves slid down? Wait a minute, this blanket wasn't hers. Wait a minute, Chu Qingyan was still in the middle of stretching, but she was completely stunned. She immediately turned over and sat up. Her loose clothes loosened because of her large movements, revealing her shoulders that were full of red spots, as well as the red marks on her thighs that were not covered. Although she had never experienced sex before, with such obvious marks and the soreness all over her body, she already had a guess in her heart. She quickly tugged at her belt, but she wasn't wearing anything inside. She looked like she was wearing a loose bathrobe. But why did this bathrobe look so familiar? It looked like Big Ice's. Wait a minute, this blanket was also from his room. Her mind was about to explode. So, last night, she and Big Ice, what the hell was going on? Why was she in her room? Where was Big Ice? Did he run away after eating? Chapter 1066. Questions came one after another. Her body was numb and sore from her large movements. She leaned against the bed, her mind blank. She woke up with a hangover and her mental strength was not very good. She rubbed her forehead and sat up. She bit her lip, embarrassed and gritting her teeth. She did not reject what happened before marriage, but where was he? Why wasn't he in front of her? This was too much. Could it be that he was really going to wipe his hands clean and then run away as quickly as possible? The more she thought about it, the more wronged she felt. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Xining pushed the door open and entered, holding a light bowl of porridge and vegetables in her hands. Seeing that her master had woken up, Xining smiled and said, "Good morning, master." Chu Qingyan turned and waved at her, "Xining, come here." Xining put down the plate and walked over, but when she saw the ambiguous red marks under the loose male version of the shirt, she immediately blushed and lowered her eyes. "Master, what's the matter?" Chu Qingyan also noticed Xining's expression. Looking down at the pink skin exposed by the wide collar, she silently cursed the big ice cube in her heart as she pulled up the collar. Looking at the situation, Xining also knew something, otherwise she would not be surprised to see the abnormality on her body. Chu Qingyan blushed, then coughed softly. "I want to ask you something, tell me what you know. What happened after I drank yesterday?" It was not that she could not remember, but as long as she thought about it, her head would become dizzy. Wine was really not a good thing, her head was still hurting. "After you drank almost all the wine on the table, the poetry gathering was almost over, so we came back. Young Master Hua sent you to the gate and left with Lord Lin." Xining replied. "And then? What did I do?" Chu Qingyan coughed softly and asked unnaturally. "As soon as you came back, you were looking for His Highness. However, His Highness had not returned yet, so you went to His Highness's room. However, before you entered the room, Hong Yi offended you, so you taught her a lesson. After that, you entered the room. At this point, Xining seemed to have thought of something. She said, "Oh, by the way, His Highness also sent you back, but you asked him to go back first." Chu Qingyan rubbed her temples, trying to dispel the dizziness she was feeling. What happened after that? When did His Highness come back? And then, wasn't I in his room? Why are you in your own room? She was sure that Xining knew what happened last night, so she didn't beat around the bush and ask directly. Anyway, Xining had been influenced by her. She had trained her to be more open-minded than ordinary women in ancient times. Thinking of this, she suddenly felt a little sorry for Jin Xian. Cough, cough. Forget it. For him, this was also a blessing in the future. Xining carefully glanced at her master. She saw that other than her master's embarrassed expression, there was also an indescribable excitement. Although she didn't know what her master was thinking, she thought about it and reported truthfully. Last night, you stayed in His Highness's room to wait for him to come back. You didn't let us in to serve you. Jasper was guarding outside. His Highness came back when the sun set, and then? Chu Qingyan's heart thumped. She thought that what happened next was what she wanted to know. Xining swallowed and lowered her head even more. Then, His Highness went into his room and never came out. That's not right. At night, he ordered us servants to pretend that you were in your own courtyard, so that no one would know that you spent the night in his room. Chu Qingyan leaned against the bed wall and gritted her teeth. So it was like that. After this stinky fellow finished eating, he still refused to admit it. But with the marks all over his body, how could he hide it? Stinky fellow, stinky fellow, stinky fellow. She kicked the blanket and rolled around on the bed. Xining's words were too difficult for her. She didn't dare to look at her master, but reason prevailed. Seeing her master like this, it was obvious that she didn't know what happened last night. She suddenly had some doubts. For her master's sake, she gathered her courage and asked. Master, why didn't His Highness let anyone know that you spent the night in his room? Chu Qingyan stopped rolling around. She bit the blanket and looked at her with watery eyes. Because I, your master, haven't married him yet. It's not proper to marry him. Woo, stinky fellow, he ran away after eating. Xining suddenly understood and clapped her hands. So His Highness did it to protect master's reputation. This servant understands now. Understand my ass. She didn't care about her reputation at all. It was just a topic for other people to talk about. She just wanted to know what this stinky fellow's attitude was. Where's His Highness? Let him come over. This lady wants to see him. She said through gritted teeth. Want her to be embarrassed like those girls who had been eaten? Humph, no way. Even if she couldn't remember what happened last night, since the big ice cube had eaten her, she couldn't run away. It wasn't like she didn't want to. Someone came from the palace this morning to ask His Highness to enter the palace. So early in the morning, His Highness sent you back and left the residence. Xining quickly replied. Entered the palace? Chu Qingyan's heart calmed down a little. It seemed like the big ice cube didn't want to see anyone on purpose. Master, do you want to eat something first? Xining saw that her expression had calmed down a lot and asked. She didn't know if it was because of the alcohol or the exercise they did last night, but she didn't have any strength and didn't feel hungry. She waved her hand. No need, I want to continue sleeping. Don't let anyone disturb me. Although Xining wanted to persuade her to eat something, she saw her tired face and closed her mouth. She nodded and took the food away. When the door was closed again, Chu Qingyan laid down on the blankets. The loose clothes were stuck to her skin and were cold to the touch. Because the big ice cube's clothes were mostly made of ice silk, it was very comfortable. Not many people knew about this last night. So it seemed like the big ice cube had helped her change into these clothes. She guessed that he had even taken care of her bath. Thinking of this, her body heated up and she lightly patted her face. What are you thinking about? I'll settle the score with him when I come back. Settle what score? He wasn't in front of her when he woke up after eating. But he did it for official business, so she couldn't blame him. But she couldn't just let it go like this. She wanted to settle the score. There was no need to ask so many questions. Anyway, she wanted to be willful. His exposed skin was covered in red marks, and there was not a single part of his body that was unscathed. It was enough to see how intense and crazy it was last night. So, even after being eaten clean, she was not allowed to make a scene. After she made up her mind, she started to roll around on the bed. It was so embarrassing. But why couldn't she remember anything at all? Don't think about it, don't think about it. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. I want to sleep. We'll talk about it when he wakes up. Chapter 1067. Very quickly, Chu Qingyan's energy was not good and she was about to fall asleep. At this time, Xiao Ran, who had been thinking about Chu Qingyan, came to the Wang Fu. Where's Qingyan? I came to see her. Xiao Ran knew that his imperial brother had entered the palace early in the morning, so he asked straightforwardly. The one in charge of receiving them was Steward White Tiger. Because he had experienced the little Wang Fei's methods and boldness, White Tiger was afraid of her. When he heard Xiao Ran's inquiry, he immediately sent people to the backyard to find her. But the person behind the servants was not the Chu Qingyan that Xiao Ran was anxiously waiting for, but Jasper. Fourth Highness, my master's body is not well today, so you can play in the Wang Fu. If there's anything, just tell Steward Bai and he will take care of it. Jasper stood in front of Xiao Ran and said respectfully. Xiao Ran was disappointed that he couldn't see Qingyan, but thinking that she was not well, he was worried. Is it because she drank too much wine yesterday? Jasper recalled her master's vigorous refusal and couldn't help lowering her eyes. Yes, usually His Highness doesn't let master drink, so master didn't control herself yesterday and drank too much. She is still resting now. Since it's like this, then I won't disturb her and let her rest. That's right, I brought this box of pastries from the palace. Let her try it. If she likes it, I'll bring it back for her next time. Saying this, Xiao Ran took the box from the alley rain behind him and handed it to Jasper. Jasper took it with both hands and expressed her thanks. Since he couldn't see her, there was nothing to do. Xiao Ran left with his people. Jasper Gunyang, is Wang Fei well? Do you need a doctor to come and see her? When Bai Yu turned to leave, Steward Bai on the side stopped her. It's nothing serious, she'll be fine after resting for a while. That's good. If there's anything, you can call this old servant at any time. Housekeeper Bai was extremely kind. Jasper nodded politely before leaving the guest room. At this time, it was already afternoon. Chu Qingyan woke up feeling refreshed after a good sleep. She raised her eyebrows when she saw Jasper coming in with a box in her hand. He's gone. She asked as she sat on the couch with her chin resting on her hand. Yes, these are the pastries that His Highness the Fourth Prince asked me to bring to you. He said that he brought them from the palace. Jasper reported. Chu Qingyan glanced at it lazily and said casually, put it aside. I'm not in the mood to eat now. The most important thing for her now was to wait for Big Ice Cube to come back. Otherwise, nothing could arouse her interest. Jasper obediently put the box on the table. At this time, Xining asked puzzledly, Master, you have a good relationship with His Highness the Fourth Prince, why don't you see him? Chu Qingyan grabbed her hair, I'm not in the mood to greet people now, and I don't have the energy. I'll talk to him next time. Xining nodded as if she understood. Jasper remembered what happened in the guest room and said in a relaxed tone, Master, Steward Bai just told me that if you're still uncomfortable, I can ask him to find a doctor at any time. This subordinate feels that his attitude towards you has changed greatly. Xining also chimed in, that's right, that's right. I've noticed it too. Ever since Master taught those stewards a lesson, I feel that our status in the residence has also risen. No one dares to deliberately make things difficult for us. It's not like 5 years ago, when they dared to bully us. Chu Qingyan sneered. The reason is very simple. They think that I'm a soft persimmon, but they don't expect that I'm a hard nail. They have been pricked by me, so they have fear in their hearts. And the most important thing is His Highness's attitude. They don't dare to go against me. Behind me stands their lord. If they want to touch me, they have to think about their own weight. Now, they are afraid that I will find fault with them, because I already know all the accounts in their hands. So, they are thinking about how to make up for the loopholes in it. They are so anxious that they can't wait to tuck their tails between their legs. They don't have the time and energy to deal with me. Besides, what's the benefit of going against me? Now that the entire mansion is mine, they can't do anything to me. So right now, they can't wait to curry favor with you. No wonder so many stewards in the mansion are so courteous to me, a little maidservant. There are also a few old mothers who are so attentive to me when they see me. It seems that we have benefited from you. Xining clapped her hands and smiled. Chu Qingyan was amused by her words, but she still put on a stern face and said, although the people in the mansion are much more well-behaved now, we can't rule out some people with ulterior motives. So, you and Jasper should keep an eye on the people in the inner courtyard when you have time. The more people there are, the easier it is, just in case. Hearing their master's serious instructions, Xining and Jasper nodded seriously in response. After giving instructions, Chu Qingyan continued to lie limp on the bed, her face full of grief and indignation. Why wasn't the big ice cube back yet? Her anger had been slowly worn away by waiting. So when Xiao Su came back in the evening, Chu Qingyan was still lying limp on the bed, not even having the strength to fight. I heard that you haven't eaten anything the entire day. Before Xiao Su came in, he had asked Jasper and Xining about the little fellow's situation today, but he didn't expect that she hadn't come out the entire day. He thought that she was shy early in the morning and didn't want to go out, so he found it funny and heartache. Chu Qingyan lazily raised her brows and glared at the stinky fellow in front of her who seemed to be proud of his success. She closed her eyes again and laid on her corpse. Ignoring him. Xiao Su smiled. His long arms scooped her up from the bed and placed her on his lap. He kissed her lips and said, "Get up and eat something." "I don't have the strength." She opened her eyes and looked at him angrily. She didn't notice that the collar of her clothes had loosened because of this tug, revealing her smooth and translucent skin. Xiao Su's gaze darkened. He then reached out to tidy her clothes and coaxed, "Then I'll ask them to bring the food in." Chu Qingyan harumphed a few times and didn't give him a good look. Xiao Su didn't mind and ordered the servants to bring the food in. Soon, a small table was placed beside the bed, and dishes that looked and smelled delicious were placed on the table one by one. After Xining and Jasper served the food, they tactfully retreated and closed the door. They stood guard outside to prevent anyone from disturbing the time the two masters were spending together. Xiao Su passed the bowl to her. She harumphed. "I don't have the strength to hold the bowl. You want me to feed you?" Xiao Su smiled. She raised her brows and looked at him with a look that said, "Guess it yourself." Xiao Su couldn't help but laugh. He picked up the spoon and fed her spoonful by spoonful. Chu Qingyan opened her mouth and ate. She pondered in her heart. The big ice block was so easy to talk to today and went along with everything she said. Could it be that he felt that he had let her down for what happened last night? Did he owe her something? As she thought about it, she chewed on the meat and bones until crunching sounds could be heard. This lady is so angry. At this moment, Chu Qingyan wanted to open the dye house after giving him some color. Chapter 1068. Xiao Su noticed her little emotions. Although he was a little confused, he felt that she had a little girl attitude that she did not usually have. The more he liked her, the more he indulged her. One ate slowly, while the other was more patient, slowly feeding her. The two of them did not speak. One ate, while the other fed. They did not feel awkward, but instead felt that there was a faint warmth in the air. Unknowingly, she had already eaten more than half a bowl. Her body had also recovered its strength. After taking a bite, she suddenly felt a conscience and vaguely said, "Do you want to eat a bite?" Hearing her voice, Xiao Su couldn't help but feel warmth in his heart. He smiled slightly. "I already ate when I was in the palace." So he had already eaten his fill before coming back to see her. She suddenly felt that waiting for him in the room for the entire day was a little silly. Her little temper flared up. When he handed over a spoon, she turned her head and refused, not eating. "Just this little bit?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. "Just this little bit, I'm already full from anger." She slipped out of his embrace and crawled under the blanket. Lifting it, her entire body was tightly covered by the blanket. Seeing that there was only a silkworm cocoon left in front of him, Xiao Su put down the bowl and looked at her with an amused expression. "What are you angry about?" Why did these words sound like a boyfriend asking an unreasonable girlfriend? Chu Qingyan felt sullen in her heart. "You're not going to admit it after eating." "Humph. Speak properly." Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He could only hear her humming under the blanket. She lifted the blanket, revealing a pair of bright black eyes. "What did you do? You actually dare to ask me?" "Stinky fellow." The little fellow in front of him had a soft voice that was very comfortable to listen to. After a busy day in the palace, he returned to the manor and heard her say a few words. The tiredness on his body dissipated in her bright eyes and gentle voice. As for what she said, he did not pay attention to it. He reached out to pinch her face, but she slapped it away. Her cheeks were puffed up in anger, and her eyes were bright. She looked very cute. Because of her actions, the collar of her clothes slid down to her shoulders, but she didn't notice it at all. His gaze darkened. With a thought, he bent down and accurately grabbed her pink hair. Originally, they were still confronting each other. Why did they suddenly kiss? Chu Qingyan was stunned for a moment, but she couldn't resist his attack and fell into it. But the skin on her shoulder felt cold, and she suddenly woke up. The hot air in front of her made her blush, but her rationality made her clench her teeth and not let him in. Xiao Su could feel her resistance. He gently bit her lips and then retreated. He stroked her face with his fingers and said hoarsely, "You don't like it?" What was there to dislike? Pay. She just didn't want today's wait to be wasted. She wanted to have a good talk with him, but under his gentle gaze, she didn't know what to say. It wasn't wrong to say that she was being pretentious. But for a girl who had kept her chastity for so many years, her first night was very important. Although it was someone she liked, it was a huge regret in her life if she lost it in a daze. Seeing the little fellow's conflicted and embarrassed expression, Xiao Su suddenly thought of something. He also knew the reason why she was throwing a tantrum today, and he couldn't help but chuckle. This deep, hoarse, and sexy low voice would make any voice addict unable to control themselves. Chu Qingyan wrinkled her nose. "Don't think that you can get away with it just because you laughed so beautifully. Bad guy. Tell me, are you throwing a tantrum because of what happened last night?" He brushed away the strands of hair on her face and asked seriously. "Throwing a tantrum?" She angrily pointed at him and said, "You bullied me, and you don't allow me to throw a tantrum? You're too bad." Xiao Su reached out and grabbed her wrist. With a gentle lift, she slid out of the blanket like she was peeling an egg and fell into his embrace. The world spun, and when she opened her eyes again, she was already looking at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Why do I feel that based on what happened last night, it was you who bullied me and not me who bullied you?" He pressed his forehead against hers and said with a chuckle. Chu Qingyan's heart skipped a beat. What did he mean? "Stop trying to fool me. This is a country where men are superior to women, not women. You ate me and you still say that you're at a disadvantage. You're too much." Although she had a bad feeling in her heart, Chu Qingyan still snorted. "So you're saying that you've forgotten what happened last night?" It was a question and a certain tone. If I still remembered, I would still be asking you. It was her first night. If she couldn't remember, it would be a regret for the rest of her life. Although it was shameless to think like this, she wanted to remember every detail with the big ice cube. Xiao Su face-bombed. As expected. Do you believe that I didn't eat you last night? He looked into her eyes and didn't avoid discussing this topic with her. The two of them had even done the most intimate thing, so he didn't feel that he needed to be polite with her. No. Then what was with the marks on her body today? Xiao Su could see the hesitation in her eyes and chuckled. You might not believe it, but I wasn't the one who forced myself on you last night. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Did the big ice cube mean that he wasn't the one who forced himself on her last night, so she was the one who acted like a rogue? She followed his gaze and saw that her loose clothes were sticking to her body, as if she was really seducing him. She immediately pulled her clothes tightly and fell into a daze. What on earth happened after drinking last night? She couldn't help but think back. Just as she was thinking about it, the person in front of her suddenly approached her. Looks like I have to teach you a lesson. Chu Qingyan blinked. Why did she feel like gritting her teeth when she heard the big ice cube's words? What had she done? Just as she was in a daze, the person in front of her suddenly put her on the bed and walked to the door. Where are you going? Why did he leave just like that? Xiao Su stopped and turned to look at her. I'll clear the obstacles first. I'll reminisce with you later. With that, he pulled open the door and left. At that moment, Chu Qingyan was still immersed in what he had just said. Why did she feel a chill run down her spine? Especially when he emphasized the last few words. Waiting was unbearable. She couldn't focus on recalling, so she simply picked up the blanket and covered herself. After a while, she heard a creak coming from the window. She lifted the quilt and saw a vigorous figure landing on the ground. She burst out laughing. A dignified prince actually jumped in through the window of his own home. Ha 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 ha, Xiao Su paused and narrowed his eyes dangerously. Let's see if you can still laugh later.